50 emails in 3 hours. So it was like, boy, those are some invigorating parents.
I mean, logging into Zoom here.
Well, and the concussion stuff that's coming out of the new church emails in 3 hours. So it was like, boy, those are some
Which one am I
invigorating
gonna want to be
parents.
listening? Okay, Thursday.
How do we look on TV? Which side is my good side? This one? This one? Come on, you guys, show me. Okay. There. Does Kate have a preference which side of her face is presented?
You ready?
They're both bad
And
sides.
go.
Okay.
I call to order the October 8th, 2025 work session of the Cordova School District Board of Education. Can we have a roll call, please?
Pete Huffner.
Here.
Hank Cruiton.
Here.
Dave Gleason.
Here.
Kate Trudeau.
Here.
All right. I assume there are no guests that want to address it.
Not for the work.
Work session, so we'll go straight to the purpose of the work session, develop board identified improvement goals.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for a point of clarification on that?
Yes,
So item number 4. I just want to know what the intention of number 4 is, because it looks like it wants to delve into district goals. So I was just curious about that.
and I too am curious on, are we talking about board goals for the board itself and board improvement? Or are we looking at district goals that the board would like to see? And I don't have clarification on that. Alex, do you have a sense of where we're going with this?
I don't necessarily, I know that Emma had made comment at last board meeting about kind of unpacking or developing a little bit more the board goals, but she also made reference to district goals. So I think for the intent and purpose of how we listed that on the agenda for the board improvement goals, then that likely is kind of the topic that's
Goals that will improve us as a functioning board.
right.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, that's what I was going to suggest, is that we stick to board goals and not get into district goals. I just think that this is not the correct. Well, it's in the title of what we're doing, board development. So I think it would be a point of order if we diverted to district goals. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. How do we want to proceed with this? Do we talk about 1, 2, and 3 specifically and talk about what we as board members can work on?
Yeah, maybe kind of a refresh of the board weekend retreat and kind of some of that conversation, and then maybe get into identifying like more specific areas under each of those goals, perhaps. Start off with anyways.
Okay. So let's talk about increasing engagement with the public. What have we agreed to so far and what have we done in the past? Because I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, this is a goal that we've had a number of years.
Correct.
So let's identify some of the things that we have done in the past. Like writing letters to the newspaper. Letters and
Postcards,
postcards,
postcard campaign.
yep. We had talks at the library. Pete, did you do a couple of those?
No, we didn't, we always tried to figure that mechanism out. We should just hold one I don't kind of try to, it's just sort of interesting. What topics do you bring up? You don't want it to, it's kind of interesting in the whole dynamics of it, not to have like a meeting type of thing. And what's brought up at it. But I always think of the advocacy piece, aspect of things, would be, sort of one of the things that I think about, of course, funding. Um, and I don't know what other people think. Sometimes, you come into a setting and things can go sideways on you real quick. And oh, I don't know if you had an agenda type of thing, would be helpful to stick to certain topics.
Pete, can I ask a clarifying question? When you're talking about the topics for the fireside chat, or I think that's what you had called it at the retreat, is the intention for the public to come and like share their thoughts and ask questions, or is it for more like the postcard writing campaign where the intention is for us to tell the public how they can be more involved in the school and advocating?
Yeah, I mean, Grant, you'd be good on the advocacy end. It's just, it's sort of complicated when you ask people their thoughts and then you do nothing with them type of thing, if that makes sense, because we aren't seated as a board type of thing. So I mean, it's just a little complex, if that makes sense. And I don't know, you want the public engagement, but you do have to realize that we can't act, in certain manners. And we have our own roles and responsibilities. So you're just being conscious of that aspect of things. But,
I was gonna have. So like in the, sort of in the scope of advocacy, for example, and just sticking with this fireside chat idea. Like, I think that it could be appropriate for, the board, well, board members in attendance at that, right? You wouldn't be speaking as a board again because of a meeting format. But like taking a look at some of the initiatives that we're doing in the district, right? Like, the recent CLSD grant that we had, right? There's a lot of opportunity, especially for that 0 to 5 age group, right? With the kind of the use of those funds in the program, that we're implementing right at the moment, right? So working with the superintendent, which who I would expect to be there as well, but providing an overview of, the grant dollars that we received, kind of a summary of what the the intended program is, so to speak, this particular year. And then maybe hearing from the public, how might we help better communicate or get access to families who are in that 0 to 5 age range, right? Because normally we don't interact with families that have real little kids unless they have older siblings, right? And so some of the communication that we're putting out, like in the newsletters, for example, around the grant, might be missing a population of families. So like that might be an idea, for example.
um, yeah, I love that, and then I was sitting there thinking it's sort of like the report card to the public, getting information out, how good we're doing. The high school's #2, and then that starts having to draw staff in, because, it isn't our expertise, how you're using the grant funds, and what you're actually doing in the classroom and stuff like that. And so we couldn't necessarily, the board members couldn't necessarily, speak to those things in finer details, outside of just a real high level, and how we're doing with reading in the district and so on and so forth. Yeah, but it's that idea of trying to connect with people, we've developed, as I've said over the years, we've developed these site councils, and, the site councils aren't, drawing people. We know that for years now. It's Teresa Keel started it way back. But this idea of communicating with the public somehow, and then we'd start drawing this staff members in to help explain the larger picture. but that idea of engaging the public, and I don't know if it would, I hate to, take more time off of Alex, but yeah, that's another method of things. I don't know if you reach a wider audience in the site councils type of thing, but yeah, it might be a method of something to do.
With, I can't remember all the things that were listed in our packet of what's available to us through AASB for our superintendent search, but like one of them was like a public forum before the candidates come. Would that be an appropriate format for that? Or do they have a format that we could use to gather information about what the community is interested in when looking for a superintendent?
Right, well, generally that's done in a survey manner, and then when the candidates are here, we'll have a definitely, we'd want to have, a meeting with the candidates, with the teachers, with the students and with the community as well. We usually, in the past, we've held that like at the elementary school in a big forum where everybody can ask questions, and so we definitely will do that aspect of it, reach out to all the stakeholders in the community to meet the three finalists, definitely.
I think you're right though, Kate, that if we have a survey that goes to the public, that certainly is a form of our reaching out to the community and engaging them in our work.
And I think it's beneficial to get it out before we select our three finalists, because I'd like to know I want to know what I should be looking for in the applications.
That's Alex.
Yeah, and
That's part
that
of
we
the
have that
process,
as a. We can go into that maybe during the meeting or
Yeah.
superintendent update, but yeah, I think. Kate's thought on that is definitely. Important, and again, I think. To restate what she said, like having some of that feedback or input prior to you looking at the applicants. Is gonna be really important, right? And you can review that and take. Whatever you would like into, what the feedback is. But kind of doing it after. Maybe. Doesn't make as much sense.
Emma, do you have anything to add to the conversation regarding increasing engagement with the public?
Yeah, I think like supporting current initiatives, obviously, like, that's great. That does though bring up like my concern that I mentioned at the self-evaluation was like, I didn't even know what some of our district goals are, so I do think that when we do have a conversation about district goals, that will be helpful, because like, how would we know what we were supporting and like how much, right? Are we supporting that? Just a couple thoughts on, like, I think surveys is a great idea. And we already have, at least if you were looking for people who interface with the school district, the Wolverine Way and the Mountaineer Minute, I think really hit a lot of people. I refer to those all the time. And so I think that those are really good resources that already have like this consistency and this really like hub in place that maybe we could use if there was information we wanted from people or to get information out as well. I do have a question about like letters to the Cordova Times. Do we need to, if there is anything like that that comes up, would we need to address that like as a board first, right? And then.
I think if the person is speaking for the board, then it would be something the board would discuss ahead of time. But I think a person has the right to be a private citizen. As long as they make that clear in the letter, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and like as it relates to written articles, let's just say sticking with that. Again, if you start using the phrase or the term, the board, right, then you kind of run the risk of like, wait a minute, we didn't even talk about that as a board. Versus if you wanted to write from a board member perspective, for example, that didn't necessarily represent the entire board's view without discussion, then kind of sending that to the president of the board and a lot of times communication through me so that I can have a read or a sense. As well as kind of a way like, Hank, I think last year you and Mrs. Stavig had written just an article to the newspaper. She had written something
She had
about,
written, yeah.
supporting early readers, right, early literacy. So the kind of the way that that flowed was she had written up the article, passed it on to the chair at the time. I can't remember if that was Dave. And then, you know, I had a chance to look at it as well. And then she submitted that to the paper as a board member without using, you know, the board really encourages you as a family to whatever the rest of the article was. It was kind of the importance of engaging little ones in exposure to literature, right? Kind of a broader sense of how parents could support their little ones. So that's, I think that's, you know, perfectly.
And I've done the same, and I ran mine up past Barb, and then, you know, we talked about it and then went forward. But like your letter, this, or your, did you write an article this last week, last newspaper? About Ivan?
Yeah, but I didn't.
But
this-
it was
it
clearly
gives them
from
that
you.
impulse.
Yeah, I mean, it was clearly from you and not a board thing, so.
Mhm.
That seemed very appropriate,
Right.
and thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and you know, thinking about like that's a form of communication from the board, but from a board member, right? And we have some policies around being able to archive that communication, like we're legally required to any communication to and from the board, which encompasses board members as well. So that's sort of where you know, I get kind of looped in, or the superintendent gets looped into that kind of conversation flow. Just so that it can be archived for historical purposes, I guess, or legal purposes. Potential.
Yeah, sorry.
What if it's not to be published, but you wanna write to the paper because they got something wrong? Like that time when they said that kids had to pick one sport or one trip. And people were like, oh, they have to pick between basketball and volleyball, and it's like, no, they don't. But they were like, I don't know, I did not write to the paper, but I wanted to write to the paper and be like, you were not clear about this, and you kind of stirred up a bit of a panic.
Yeah,
Here's really what's happening. Is that something that would go, I'd ask you first and I'd send it to you and you would send it to the paper?
yeah,
Or-
so sort of being like the spokesperson of the district, right? Like
Mhm.
the president's the spokesperson for the board and the district. So like, in that situation, if you would have like written something and said, hey, Alex, like, can you forward this along? Or, you know, could you communicate this to the newspaper to ask for a correction or clarification like that? That communication sort of flow works really well
Got it.
as well.
That's why you have to write your own article, so it gets printed properly.
Don't get me started on the Cordova Times. And many library articles that just disappeared into the ethers.
I think that having our board meeting streamed is one big step that we've made for increasing engagement with the public. Ever since I mentioned that, I've like heard a lot of people are like, oh, my husband listens to the council meeting online at home, you know, so like I've just even heard more feedback that that's just a way of the world these days, and so I'm glad that we are doing already in there. So I think we've already made a big step. I'm also just happy to have a very informal and creative way. I mean, we're kind of like listing out specific things, but it's also like each one of us are individuals and we each have our own groups and interests. And I'm happy to have us take a very personal approach when we engage with the public. A couple of weeks ago, Representative Donna Mears was in town at a function that I was at. And so I made sure to talk to her about like education and so I also met with a couple other legislators in Anchorage a couple weeks ago and was championing Cordova School District. And so I just think that each one of our circles is going to look different and have a big impact. And that's why we're better as a whole board. And so I don't want to limit I don't want to be too restricting or prescriptive with when we think about this. And I just think that if it's on the forefront of our minds to like put education, students first, yeah, just inspirational. I'm inspired by that.
Dave, do you have anything to add to the conversation?
I agree with Kate that the Cordova Times makes it their fair share of mistakes. Also, she nailed it. The survey would do us no good after we picked our finalists, so I was gonna say something about that. I'm glad she brought that up. That's legitimate, and I like what Emma said about the principles, the Mountaineer Minute, and that's an excellent way to engage the public. So um, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have one more that is a little
Sure.
bit related. Pete brought up the site council meetings. And like, I have just had such value as a parent and also as a school board member for the information that's provided at those site council meetings. I mean, I don't have a solution for anybody, but I have thrown it out a few times during discussion. It's like, I really think that the information that we receive there, and also when we do have parents who come, 'cause I have been to ones that were well attended. You get so many different perspectives that, I'm just really stumped on how we're able to have the entire board hear that and have, it's just like, there's just so much content and dialogue there that I think is really important. And I don't know what to do with that. That's a way we engage with, like that really brings the rubber to the road with what are we doing in education? And then you hear all these perspectives and even great ideas or concerns, and we can address them. And so, I don't know, I really like those site council meetings for two-way communication and,
And I have to be honest, and that sometimes, I find that I try to be, kind of draw back a little bit in those meetings because I don't want it to become, engagement from the board to the public, but from the principal to the public. And that I'm there just to, support the principal's efforts in that arena. Um. So there's a fine line for me there.
maybe that's a good way that we can even approach those site council meetings is like for us to, you know, eyes and ears
Yeah.
and then offer, but not, do it.
And we've tried over the years to really try ahead of time to invite lots of people to come to those. So that they're, more successful, but that's our thing to do.
There is there is some pieces though that don't get translated over to the board room. So like there's meetings that I've been part of that not everyone else has been part of that I just think, man, that was good information. I wish you guys could have heard that too. Or even, so that's just like one of the bigger struggles that I have with us knowing also what's going on in the schools, because they actually answer some of those questions about what's going on in the schools. And then here in the boardroom, we would be blind to that. Right, it's not just an issue that I'm throwing out there.
Any other items for number one, engagement?
I appreciate that you were able to chat with the legislators here and then in Anchorage, and that's to me, one of the big roles is A, advocacy, B is being kind of a cheerleader for the district and. I love the site councils. I just wish more people would attend them. We haven't ever stopped them or anything, but I know sometimes there's real great attendance at some of them. But it's sort of, having a different style of the fireside chat. Might be able to, might be another option of bringing people in and speaking about things going on in the school, more so than just the advocacy aspect of things.
We've had tables at some of the open houses too, where, the school open houses or
Right.
events and just set up a table and say the school board and a couple of us would be there to answer questions.
Right.
Talk about the issues.
Right, that might be something, I know we've sat at ball games and stuff and open houses and stuff as well. as.
Because the letter writing or the card writing went really well, and I think possibly we could occasionally be at a basketball game. Just with table without having people having to do anything, but just ask, to answer questions or to engage with people. Alex,
Yeah, two comments, and I was gonna say that I can say this because I'm leaving.
He's not in thought bubble anymore.
No, but the idea in terms of community engagement or right, one of the ideas, well, I'll start with the newsletter piece. Thanks for sharing that, Emma. Like I would really encourage the board to consider, even if it's one attempt or one little, board perspective or education, as a former CHS student, right? And kind of like just sharing a paragraph or two that could be inserted into the newsletter, right? And again, you're like sharing some of your experience, whether it was here as a student or now as a board member, right? And you're speaking as an individual and not kind of on behalf of the board. And just, talking in generalities about the importance of education. And, we know that there are struggles and families have different situations, but boy, education and attention to attendance at school, like whatever, however your style of writing is, right? So if, one board member per month over the course of the next, till school is out, right? That's potentially, two.
Are people gonna
two
grade, are people gonna grade this and check our English and
You
stuff?
send it to me first, I'm happy
Yeah.
to red pen it, right, and
Yeah.
apply my grammarian skills.
I can't remember, I kind of have, well, no, maybe keep going.
Well, so that's the bit on the newsletter, piece, just again for
and we've had a
consideration.
couple of those.
Yeah, we have, and I think they were really well received.
Yeah.
And the principals were happy to, plunk those into the newsletter, so that could be kind of an ongoing, effort at engagement, right? News from the board member corner, right? He had a little section that Paul and Don dress up. And then the other piece around engagement, was brought up about city council meetings, right? And again, the notion of, right, there are 5 members of the board and certainly in, like past practice was whomever was attending those board meetings, and oftentimes it was Barb as president. She and I would get together ahead of time and say, hey, she would ask, is there anything that, has happened in the district that I might be able to share with the council or, test scores, whatever, right? Like you wouldn't share too many details, but again, Rob, we've got these events coming up and, we're getting ready for testing and kind of some general things like that, just as a communicative piece. So anyways, might that be a consideration for kind of that establishing a routine engagement, but alternating attendance at those? Again, it's okay for me to say that out loud because my time is short.
How can we move that forward, that idea? I know we've talked about it, let's keep that live, sorry.
No, I think that's, and we'll go just a second, okay? I think you're right, we need to do something with that besides just, because we've made promises to each other lots of times and not always carried them out.
Right.
And so I think maybe we need to find out what the dates are and sign them for dates. And one,
Just assign people the dates.
or yeah, say, I'll take this one and this one, or,
Will let us sign up for it.
yeah, we'll sign up for ones and we know our own calendars and,
We can all agree to a certain number,
yeah,
but
I.
I'll say I gotta-
I've gone.
I can make it to a few, but I can't make it if you tell me which ones. Sorry,
Yeah.
something else booked.
Emma, you had something you want to share?
Yeah, I was just like, I'm a red, was that the goals oriented AASB? And so I was using like your example with, the reading goal and how we just, we had 100%, our reading goal was 100% proficiency at 3rd grade, right? And as a parent, I didn't know that, and even as someone who went to the school board meetings, so I mean, having a goal and being able to express that to parents, like, hey, parents, this is the goal. This is why it's so important that you guys do your homework with after school, right? Or this is why we want you to read. This is why we're doing one school, one book. So you can read together and we can build this culture of literacy. So I just think that when we have these like goals that we're actually thinking of, the rest kind of it could fall into place pretty easy depending on what those goals are, and it would look different for different things we want to focus on as a district, and that's how we really partner together to move it forward. So I was just using the literacy goal as an example, and maybe other community members or parents have other ideas and solutions towards those ends as well. I will note on the city council meetings, if we do that, I will have a very limited number of meetings that I will be able to attend.
Well, there are 2 meetings a month.
I think so.
But if we agreed to come to 1 a month, and then one of us was that we don't have to go once or twice each, right, probably. That's doable.
Yeah, like over the course of a year.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's two meetings or so.
Yeah.
Share that out.
Yep.
Maybe what we'll do is I'll have Christy put together just like we'll do a Google sheet. Just with the proposed or anticipated dates, if they usually have routine dates, then we can share it with you, and if you want, plunk your name in there so that everybody can see.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, anybody else on item number 1, or else we'll move to item number 2. Dedication to training and personal improvement, and that relates directly to the board as a functioning entity.
Signed up for a board training today.
No.
Yeah, 3 of you are going to Anchorage, correct?
Yeah, ready, set, govern.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely an example of.
Right,
working on
right.
that. Yep.
I was trying to get Alex engaged in it, but I guess there's something more important. No, and that presentation aspect.
In the board packet, Alex mentions Jurassic Parliament, and that's just a group that I've followed for a long time. And so I don't know, they have a mailing list if parliamentary procedures are your thing. Sometimes they do. I mean, she breaks it down really well, even in like Q&A type things. And so anyway, I always thought that was a really good resource. And I actually signed up for one of her trainings today.
Free?
No,
You should.
well, no, it wasn't free. I did.
There's a free.
Yeah, anyway, it was a school board specific one, so I thought that was interesting, but I don't know, that's a resource that I think could be helpful, but
Do they still have the internet classes for new board members?
Yeah, first term, we're
Yeah.
starting those up here next month.
Okay.
They're stored on the website, but we're restarting a new one just with the elections that happened. And I know Ann McFarland that runs Jurassic Parliament, and I was working with her the other day, and she shot out a note to all AASB board members can get a free training, great school board meetings.
And those are good.
Yeah.
Those online training, I've done a few of those.
Yeah, as well as and those are recorded, the first term boardsman, FTBM. They're recorded and kept on the AASB website. There's a huge number of resources on the AASB website.
it's up with the new website. we did.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It got goofed up. Yeah, I know.
Maybe.
Right.
Now when it's all up.
It
I did
should
look
be
through
up
something,
now. And
Anyway.
I'll show you
Maybe
later
after-
on.
Yeah, but one thing who signed us up for the Ballot-opedia? Okay, maybe it's a spam thing that I'm getting, but right, don't you guys get those emails?
I think I do.
I skim them. I don't always have time to get really in depth, but where I have struggled is like keeping up with some of these. With really keeping up with things on education. And I know that, right, Alex runs the schools, but like if we don't know.
Oh, yeah, there's.
If we don't know what some of these things are, we're not gonna be super effective, right? So I think that is one area that I have. That I feel deficient in, and so I do a lot of research on that. If there's, that's why sometimes site council meetings, right, are so important, because now the principals are breaking it down for me what these things mean. But even we're gonna be talking about charter schools, and I did, a lot of research on charter schools, which probably wasn't even sufficient and might not even have been related to the, right, what we're gonna talk about today. But I do think that keeping up with, it's more than just knowing the board processes, it's also keeping up with what's going on in education today. So if anyone has some good resources or suggestions to do that, I think that that's something that I personally would benefit from.
I'll shoot you some different ones later on, but a lot of PDAs about when you sign up to be a candidate for office.
I think I was gonna add it kind of a offshoot of Emma's comment, so. I'm part of a group called, it's ASCD, it's the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development, and so I get a periodic book in the mail, hardback book, and I have a list of it's called Alex's book list, I think, but I have them all in the, do you guys have access to that? Okay, all right, so there's lots of, current trends and, different things like that, and I get, an Ed Week, Ed Leadership magazine, so like if you're ever in the office and wanna kind of browse through those books or the magazine publications that I have, lots of current stuff and so forth, so that could potentially be a resource to just kind of poke your nose at if you're interested.
Anything else on that? I think of our board retreats, I think those are learning opportunities where we really kind of learn about ourselves and how we feel as a board, how we're functioning. I think that's an important piece. Dave?
Yeah, I got to go to both of those, the retreat and that annual training last year, and I really got a lot out of the annual training with the different topics. When we were able to go into different rooms and go to different they had all sorts of different topics. I got to go to a policy, I got to go to, oh, I can't remember all the ones I went to, but I picked the ones that I was interested in, and it was a pretty good learning experience. So I'm kind of sad I can't go this year, but it's just the way it is. So, but I highly recommend them. It's a really good training, and I think there was three of us there last year with and Alex. There may be only two of us and Alex. I can't remember. It was a good time. So I recommend them.
Thank you. The fly-in is another that we call paid fly-in, right? That's another opportunity for a lot of growth as a board member. Not just in meeting with lots of other board members, but talking to the politicians who make the decisions for us, and the engagement with the students that go with us is really important too.
And there's the Fall Boardsmanship Academy we just had, and then there's another spring academy as well. We used to have a December law policy, but we've discontinued that. So the Fall Boardsmanship Academy, the annual meeting, the legislative fly-in, and then the April spring academy. Yeah. And I'm trying to think if the spring one is virtual. No, it's in person, I think.
And you go to all of those, right?
Yeah, and so, that it seems, when we start looking at our budget, we aren't paying for me anymore. So yes, it's kind of a savings to the districts. I'm there.
I don't really want to sign up for anything else to do or additional expense, but I do like that somebody from Cordova is at them, at those functions. I think that really is part of meeting that goal of board development. And so, Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things, I too would worry over the years about the cost of everything that's involved in it, but. One of the flying, we always want professional development for our staff too, right? And we want our staff to be up in the best, knowing the most and the best, the most current, can't think of good words. But it's similarly at the board level, we want engagement and people notice, that you're there and so on and so forth. I'm thinking about the legislative fly-ins and stuff, but it's part of our development and it's part of the reason for our growth too. So never let the cost hinder you. I mean, yeah, we're very conscientious of our costs, but don't let it stop you from going to these professional development things. Because the more as a board member, and it's all about student achievement. And so it's one of those things.
I agree. The fly-in for me, I kind of didn't understand it when I first went. And I really thought it was gonna be my attempts to persuade individuals to think like we thought. But in the end, I came away with going, you know what, that was a big learning experience for me to understand how the process works and how important it is that we're involved in that process. Anything else on number 2?
I'll just continue to hijack my energy, contacts for education at the legislature.
So number 3 is advocate for the school district at the local and state level. We talked about this a little bit already, but let's review some of the things we do when it comes to that.
We all call our representatives. And then we call them again when when their staff emails us back and says, thank you for calling. Also consider calling on this measure because this is what's gonna fund this measure.
And I hope you get a response back. I've been emailing Representative Nick Baggett to get no results. The secure rural schools funding, and I've spoken also to city council that maybe they should be writing to Nick Baggett too, because it's being held up. And so it's kind of, so I'm advocating for this funding that comes to the city level. And yeah, as well as the national level, there's some issues out there that are kind of concerning.
I think just to maybe circle back to the idea of kind of rotating city council meetings, like I think that your presence as individuals out and about in the community, particularly when you've got your board member hat on, says a lot, right? I mean, and again, if the city council, for example, sees and is familiar with people on a routine basis, when we have to sometimes ask the hard ask or know that the city is in a particular position, like you've already established more than just a casual hello on the street, right? Like you showed up at their meeting as a representative, and your primary goal as a board is to advocate for the best interest of the district and and the students. So I think that like really, if you had to pick anything tonight, just to kind of like say that's the one we're gonna do, like that might be an interesting one to consider. But they're all important, of course, but like that advocacy piece that Pete talks about, like I don't think that you can say and do that enough.
Yeah.
Locally, especially.
Yeah, and I guess I'm probably at fault there. I go in and ask for money a lot. And I should probably go in and tell how good the district is doing. It's mind bending how we're number 1 2 years in a row. We need a big banner in the front of the building.
I really liked it when we all went to that meeting. I mean, I just thought that was like a good thing, but I didn't know what to expect. And I wonder if maybe next year when we do it, we can maybe come with a little bit with some maybe like high points of our education system. So like our reading goal that we are making huge, initiatives that we're working on that have paid, that are moving forward education, right? Education is their biggest expense, right? So let's show them, this is like, not just, this is like funding your workforce in the future. And these are all the things that we've accomplished. So really showing them what we're doing, especially because most council people were also students at one time in our district. And, we can only go back to our own personal experiences. So really clearing the slate, say, these are the things that we're doing. This is what we have. I think that might really color what's going on here and really show you absolutely want to put your dollars here, right? Because that's what they have to decide. So I'm happy to work on that with anybody, but making it less about the dollars and more about the students.
I think that's a great point, Emma, and us going into, so sort of historically, probably the last, maybe just post COVID or thereabouts. And maybe it happened in previous years, Pete. But the district would kind of have these joint work sessions, right, from time to time with the city council. So the one that we went to most recently, the council established the agenda. And we kind of walked in, not exactly, no, at least I walked in, not knowing what to expect entirely, although they had an idea that they were going to ask about, our request. But if we were usually alternate those meetings, so like the next meeting, we could extend an invitation to the council, or the next time somebody goes to a city council meeting, right, work with me, and we can extend an invitation and say, hey, we'd like to have a joint before you guys even start your budgeting process, right? So maybe late October, sometime in November, right, we could potentially have a joint work session and we can do kind of just what you're describing, right? Share out directly some of those goals and some of the progress that we're making toward that. Okay. I think that would be a great opportunity.
One thing that that I love about our schools is our school lunch. And I was thinking, like, when we have legislators here, I want to invite them to school lunch. Right, or even city council members who don't have students, like, can you come, like, let me take you to lunch at our school and you can see, like, let's make sure, I mean, all the school lunches are really good. But like, maybe on a particularly fancy day.
Not too fancy.
Yeah, but I was just thinking like, man, our lunch program is so great, and then we see all this progress and this like elevation of all school lunch programs that Sandy's working with Unalaska and other, and I just really think that's something that we gotta keep championing, and food is a way to some people's hearts, and anyway, that's just an idea that I had, that Alice, I might be reaching out to you if I snag anybody in town. Come eat lunch with our elementary school kids. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dave?
Oh, I'd just say Mary Peltola would have gotten back to you, Pete. So our vote matters. So that's where we gotta pick a governor that's pro-education. Our vote matters. So that's a biggie. That's all, pretty much
Thank
all I
you.
want to say about that.
Thank you.
And I love your comment about having legislators when they're in town to make sure to have them go through the school and swing by Alex's office first, of course. But anytime I'm in Juneau, I'm always telling them, jump off the plane. Everybody tells me I fly through Cordova, and I said, well, jump off the plane. You can stay at my house, check out our wonderful schools. So, yeah, that's excellent.
The other thing I was gonna add is, when I write sometimes or email or do those things, I actually approach them as a grandparent. And I think so, like, sometimes the responses I get are better when I tell them I'm a grandparent versus I'm a board member. Because they have kind of an expectation that board members are going to want certain things, but when you're a grandparent, you sound more like a voter who's got, skin in the game.
Yeah, just tell them you're voting for them and they'll reply.
There you go. Anything else on this? All right, we decided we were gonna table number 4 because we felt that those goals were. That's addressing district goals and not board goals. Alex, I'm curious if, perhaps in a future. Board meeting, we could, for informational purpose, see perhaps a list of some of the. District goals that, we are going to help advocate.
Yeah, I was wondering, where do we have, I was thinking we had about the 100% reading goal someplace. Was thinking at first it was on the board packet and I was trying to remember. Where is that? When I started looking on the website, I can't remember exactly where those goals were that we had set them at one point. Along with the 100% reading.
I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on that.
The 100% reading really is, is a goal that was generated by the board,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So I could be considered a board goal. That we put forth to the district.
So we don't know yet though when we're gonna talk about district goals.
I don't think I don't know where we're at on that. That'll be a decision, Dave and Alex and. Alex, did you want to say something about that?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think when we talk about, district goals as a whole, I mean, many of them are articulated in our strategic plan, right? And those are things that staff are working on daily, in terms of implementing.
It sounds like the board would benefit in at least having not a conversation, but for information purposes, seeing what those goals are, so that we have a better understanding.
Right.
We did have them on the agenda. I was just looked back at a February meeting. We had school district board priorities, school board priorities for the district.
You said February?
And maybe.
Yeah, I just happened to pull up an old packet. I don't know when it changed at what point, but
Thanks, Pete.
All right, with that, I think we should close the work session, give everybody a chance to stretch their legs before our board meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I don't need a motion for that, correct?
No.
Okay.
All right, Dave, you got 8 minutes.
I'll bring your time for that.
Okay, I'll see what I can do in 8 minutes.
All right.
does he have to be in person
I'm
on
gonna
this?
put you on mute.
Can you hear me, Hank?
Regular meeting of the Cordova School Board on October 8th, 2025. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
All right, thank you everyone for being here, and we'll start with presentations of certificate awards.
Roll
Oh,
call.
sorry, roll call, please. Thanks, Dave.
Dave Gleason,
I'm here.
Hank Crudup,
Here.
Emma Merritt,
present.
Pete Hefner.
Here.
Kate Trudeau,
Here.
Maureen Saget. Here.
We have quorum. Now, presentations of certificate of award.
So as we know, annually, AASB recognizes its members from members districts regarding achievement efforts and so forth along the way, right? When you participate in various trainings and so forth, you kind of move up the level of engagement within the organization. And I'm proud to present this evening to Pete Hefner, recognizing him with the Lifetime Achievement Boardsmanship Award presented through the district from AASB. You know, Pete's been on this board for, well, depending on how he's telling the story, it's anywhere from 6 to 26 or 36 years, sorry. But he's certainly been a staunch advocate for both the district and students throughout his years. And you know, that's certainly recognizable with his dedication to the School Board Association, as well as him representing Alaska on the National School Board Association in varying roles. So this is presented, signed by Lon Garrison, the Executive Director of the School Board Association, and Dana Mock, who is the President on the Board of Directors for the School Board Association. So please help me congratulate Pete on.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, sir. Excellent.
Congratulations. I want to note that there is correspondence in our packet for everyone to look at. And now I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move to approve the October 8th, 2025 regular meeting agenda as presented.
I second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. No discussion, can we get a roll call, please?
Kate Trudeau,
Yes.
Pete Hefner,
Yes.
Emma Merritt,
Yes.
Hank Crudup,
Yes.
Dave Gleason.
Yes.
This time, we have time for audience comments regarding agenda items. We have no members or audience presenting. I need a action on a consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented in the board packet.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion, roll call please.
Kate Trudeau,
Yep.
Pete Hefner,
Yes.
Emma Merritt,
Yes.
Hank Crudup,
Yes.
Dave Gleason.
Yes.
And it is approved. We move to reports. We're starting with student council.
Yeah, our last Spirit Week and Pep Rally went really well. Everybody showed up and dressed up for the cross country and volleyball pep rally. And then we're starting to plan our second quarter pep rally and Spirit Week for junior high swimming. And that'll be in a few weeks, I think. Volleyball and sports have really gotten started. I think the volleyball girls are in Anchorage this weekend, and then they won the Copper River Rally that we had a few weekends ago, if anybody went to those games. And then Phoebe and I have established aluminum recycling containers in the school as part of our Copper River Watershed Project internship. So we're trying to encourage recycling among the students this year that way. Yeah.
Any questions?
Thanks for recycling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, no
I
question.
was gonna,
Oh, go ahead, Pete.
did anybody bring, I missed the volleyball fundraiser. Is that still going on? And I guess I asked Alex and he said you can find it on the website. But
I'm not sure. I think
It is.
it's on the website. Okay, thanks. Okay, excellent. I need to, oh, okay. Okay. Thanks.
Do we have someone from CEA here today?
Correct, last time. So I'm Barbara Donahue, representing CEA, and our teaching staff at the middle school and high school, our reporting team time got off to a great start in September. Teams composed of students from each grade competed in a STEM challenge using creativity and ingenuity to build paper containers to protect eggs from being smashed by stacks of books. It's always fun to see how quickly the upperclassmen welcome younger students into the fold. The cross-country team competed at the state level. Coaches Fry and Westing encourage the kind of camaraderie that keeps the team growing and growing. And Mrs. Hottiger's class has enriched the geocaching opportunities around Cordova, and you are encouraged to search them out. At the elementary school, the teachers, all the staff are at Eccles have been working cooperatively with consistently and constantly shifting schedules, trying to figure out how to best service our students. And prep time is really helpful to make frequent meetings to do any adjustments. And the teachers are refining our MTSS push in and pull out time to meet all students' diverse needs.
Thank you. Any questions?
Appreciate that.
So I'm gonna take a moment and welcome Neva to our board meeting. She represents the Developing Cordova Classified Educator Group. Which we'll be hearing from that group more as the year progresses. Thank you for being here. Do we have anyone here from city council? I don't see anybody here from city council. We'll move on to committee reports, AASB. Mr. Gleason.
Yeah, I got nothing. I'm gonna defer to Pete.
AASB Pete.
Yeah, we're getting ready for the AASB annual conference that's coming up. And all that information, it'll be out. It's 4 days of excellent training. And I also just wanted to mention about that free workshop at Jurassic Park. So if you go to the Jurassic Park, no, yeah, Jurassic Parliament. Yeah, she's got this funny thing with the dinosaurs. But go to Jurassic Parliament website, and if you scroll down, it's register for a meeting, and you could type in free school, all caps. And you can get the October 16th at 9 AM is the meeting. And then it's also being recorded, and so you can have access to it for 30 days. I did just put that out on the AASB Connect, which I can talk to you guys later if you're signed up for that. If you got that, it'd be interesting to see. I send out so many emails and I don't get nobody replies to me. But that's an excellent kind of fun training, and there's wonderful resources on that site as well. But that's what's been going on at AASB at the moment.
Thank you. High school site council. Dave or Miss Merritt?
I went to that one. And Mr. Tancred explained what they're doing with the interventions and the changes that they've made since receiving that CSLB grant. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
CL, yeah, that grant, the grant, that's what I will forever call it. So he explained like how they've shifted the interventions, and so it looks like that grant is really providing additional resources in terms of like curriculum and reading like software and screeners for the high school, so that was really cool to see how they're doing that with seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. And then the math plans have been kind of put on pause, but it looks like the teachers, some of the teachers, or at least one of the teachers, is really doing that on their own. So they're just trying to dial in the reading, and then they'll work on that, on the math interventions. The grant focused on reading, so there was no math set part of the grant. So whatever we do with the math will be really on our own. But Mr. Tancred has a lot of experience with interventions, so looking forward to see how everything plays out there. And then he explained some of the ways that Fridays work. Sometimes it's student-led, sometimes it's teachers suggest students come, other times it's teachers have specific sections, kind of like office hours, where if you're in this class, this is when you come, or whatever class. So there's a lot of variation on how the Fridays students are engaging with Fridays. And so he explained a lot of that. And it was great talking with another parent who was there. So very good meeting. My biggest takeaway though was that Mr. Tancred did have that meeting, and it was an important family day for him. And so I just really value all of our employees' times and our time. And so I hope that we just try to avoid some of those like important family conflicts and try to avoid them. But that's my take on that.
Thank you. Safety and facility, oh, excuse me, elementary site council, Ms. Kate.
Mrs. Gonzalez showed us a little bit more about the Yale ruler curriculum. She shared her goals for the year, and she opened up for ideas for new goals for the families to share ideas for her to have for her goals. And then we talked about ideas for future site council meetings. And I believe we kind of landed on safe usage of technology and talking about different safeguards that you can use with your kids and how to be a good role model with your technology, which I believe will be the next site council meeting.
Thank you. Safety and facilities?
Yeah, we had a meeting the other day. We spoke a lot about all of the different training that the staff members need to take, coming from a lot of these unfunded mandates and such. And it is, I really appreciate the staff taking all these trainings. I mean, it's extensive. There's good information in them, but it can be a burden at times. But I appreciate the other interesting aspect of that is that by taking these safety courses, and we also spoke about why we set up the facilities committee when we were renovating the elementary school. We have recently added, I don't know, it's been a number of years, we've added safety onto it. And the idea of safety and facilities committee. And we get a discount from our insurance company, which used to be APEI. Alex sits on that board. And also, if the staff takes the training, you get additional, it's like up to 19%, we get reduced off just because of the different factors of having a safety committee, all the staff taking these trainings. And that's mainly what we spoke about at this last meeting. Did I miss anything?
But just to kind of put a tangible number onto that 19%, upwards of 19% for property liability, and then workman's comp insurance, that we should, if we hit those targets, get back about $22,000 from our insurance premium this year. Really working and encouraging staff to hit those hourly thresholds so that it contributes back to the overall savings for the district.
Thank you. Curriculum committee.
Mrs. Hottinger shared her teachings. All of these courses are approved by the State Department of Education. So she showed us the form that she fills out and the evidence that she submits when she goes for approval. They seem really fun. I kind of want to take these classes. We talked a little bit about how the coursework that they do translates to potential future employment opportunities. Even we talked about textiles, because I think someone was like, does anyone go into a job in textiles? And she's like, there's one student who took those classes and works at the net loft. And then we reviewed the checklists for curriculum review. We talked about transparency and making that available for the public to see how we go through and review curriculum. It's included in the board packet for anyone that wants to see, and maybe will be future shared on the curriculum website. But not at this moment. For the time being, it's in the board packet.
I have a question. Which classes did you say were from the state website that Mrs. Huttinger went over? Were they?
She designs the classes and then she sends them to the State Department of Education to approve.
But what classes were they?
Oh, she does CTE.
Oh, see, okay, that's what CT.
Yeah, sorry.
I know, that's okay. Which one? What?
And then the next time I think we're going to have Mr. Pearson's CTE classes we'll be talking about.
Okay.
So I'll just add to that a little bit. So the courses that she has designed in tourism and textiles and food nutrition, and there was one other in particular. But anyways, because we use federal funds to help support those programs, we use the Carl Perkins or Career and Technical Education Grant at the state. We can set up what are called pathway courses, right? So entry level course might be just that, an entry level, and then we can have another course that goes along with that to demonstrate that we have concentrators in particular areas or completers of those courses, and then that again helps to support the Carl Perkins funding that we get to be able to use for those classes. So the state has to, what Kate was saying, the state approves those crosswalk documents to ensure that they're meeting the federal requirements for kind of those pathway type courses.
I think that it was noted on the chambers, one of the Chamber of Commerce's publications, that there was a tourism class. I think so. Anyway, so someone had asked me about that and I didn't know about it, and now I do.
Thank you. Policy committee.
Yeah, we met recently. We started to dive into the 9000s, their board bylaws, BBs. They're always a fun read to me, which is weird, right? It was interesting. I hadn't noticed that the communication one, we hadn't added a social media aspect of it. And it's interesting in other districts, they're having issues in that regard. So it's always kind of interesting when if you ever can't sleep, just grab the policy manual, and that along with the resolutions. Start with the resolutions and then read policy. No. And so we made it halfway through the 9000s. We didn't really see anything. And I was trying to remember if we've had a couple meetings. We adopted we're bringing up the chapter 10,000s, which is a new one that was just developed on charter schools recently, and adding that one to the pack, to the policy manual as well. Sort of a new whole policy chapter in that regard. In some of these policies were developed, 6151 class size, 5380 person cell phones on cell phones. And those in charter schools come from HB 57 legislation.
Anything else on policy? Negotiation committee, we did not have a meeting. So we will move on to administrative reports. Seth, you're up first.
Hello. I'm trying to think of what to add. I feel like I always forget to add things in there, but in my report, what those banners that I showed off recently, we received them all, so here on a non-busy weekend, we're gonna try to put them up. And then I think another thing that happened that I failed to put in there that I'm excited about is a new camera for the gym, and a new kind of system of how we live stream and broadcast our games instead of doing YouTube, we'll have the what I think they call it fan.huddle.com, and so we'll have our own profile on there, and a little bit easier way to maybe access, but also ways to bring in more revenue through sponsorships. So been diving into that, and I think the camera shows up tomorrow, so.
Yeah.
Is that the camera that follows the players? You don't.
Yeah,
mount it
yeah.
Up and you just don't have to do much with it?
Yeah, you like set your schedule and when it's gonna start, and it automatically turns on and it'll follow the players, or you can have different ways to do it, You know, if we have graduation going on. It has like 3 or 4 cameras in use, and it can just use one to just see the stage. You know, or it can follow a volleyball game using the main court, or, you know, even double courts like we've been doing. It can go wall to wall and just stay fixed. So you can kind of see what's going on instead of, you know, and, you know, other schools have been jumping on and doing it, like Valdez, is one in particular that I've talked with them a lot about it and get some good reviews. And I'm excited because it's kind of getting rid of an older way of recording, and I'm not very tech savvy. So when something happens in the older way of recording, I'm calling Josh Pearson all the time. But this has its own support, its own stuff. And again, the thought of bringing in kind of some sponsorship and revenue through that site, but also through its own, like the thumbnails before you click on it, you can put sponsorships and bring in a different, you know, we have that placard wall and just other ways we can get sponsors to promote their business and us to make up some costs, so.
Yeah, it's a cool system. I saw it about 4 or 5 years ago when they first started it out,
Yeah, they're competing with NFHS. Yeah. That type of stuff.
Any other questions? Yes.
Seth assures me that the $1,500 in equipment will be well worth his time, loss of sleep and stress and last minute trying to find people to run cameras and things, so. That's usually part of it, is it's either Alex camera or I run.
Well, it's nice when it's Alex or you or Karen, because sometimes you're getting motion.
Oh,
Watching it, so
Sorry.
I think we're all gonna be.
Or it's the classic, you know, I'm sitting in there and it's a couple junior hires or a couple kids talking about things maybe they shouldn't be talking about. Sprinting up there to tell them, we can hear you. So yeah, that'll stop.
You can monitor the volume from afar. Nice. Excellent.
And again, I think for Seth, the exciting aspect of that is to be able to basically preload a season or even preload the whole year with dates and times, and then be able to control that from his office, from his computer. Yeah, and having all those meetings, and too, I just learned that I can have it on the app. So if I need to like run home, or if I'm not there for whatever reason and the time changes, I can out through the app, change the time and push start or call support through there and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty cool, pretty fancy. I can't wait for that first event. Probably successful.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you, sir. And our principal reports, Ms. Gonzalez.
Ooh, can I ask Seth a real quick question? On the fundraising aspect, do all the teams sometimes, I don't know, if I'm out of the loop and I want to support the teams and stuff, where can I go to find that stuff? Sorry, I should have asked earlier.
We don't necessarily have a central location of just fundraisers. It was brought up, that volleyball, and like Christy said, like volleyball has their own site. they can do that, but that was something, once they brought up that idea, it was like, oh, maybe we do have our, if everybody was kind of proactive on it, and every team can have their own site to go to, and it kind of explains why they're doing it, and here's what's coming up, and, we haven't fully. Nobody else has really done that, but volleyball has kind of taken that first step, but it would be nice if everyone would. Especially now, if everyone would kind of do that, I know I should probably do that, the wrestling team and. Just personally speaking, but yeah, there's not really such a location yet, but
Okay,
it should, I hope that we can get to that point.
okay, thanks.
If they have their own sites where they're generating money for their sport, does it still come to the district and become district in the district finances?
Yeah, and like in their case, in the volleyball case, like they have a QR code that you can go to scan, but that is. From what I understand and how it's been talked about being set up is that QR code goes to our ref track. To then they can click on and go down all the activities and click donate through, through the district. So it's none of it is intended to bypass the district. It's just a easier way to get to them. Easier way for them to locate who they want. If someone in the community wants to locate and sponsor a volleyball player, it's just an easier place to go to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, good. Yes,
So, yeah, the district receives the revenue, and for that particular format online, the rev track. There is a credit card transaction fee that gets charged, but the district absorbs that cost, so we didn't want the donator necessarily. Be paying that, and it's an extremely small amount, even with.
so there are no boosters or parent groups that are collecting and holding funds for these sports teams.
No.
Okay.
The Booster Club is its own entity that has its own
Right.
bank account and bylaws and so forth,
Right.
so. But all of that revenue comes to the district directly.
Auditing wise, is that complicated with this many different groups collecting money or?
No.
problem?
No problem.
Okay.
Probably easier.
It's separated or it's identified.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Miss Gonzalez.
Hello, hello. Can't believe it's October already. This school year's flying by, next week is the last week of the quarter already. And one more week to go for one school, one book, 2 more weeks. Well, no, 1 week after next week, so yeah, I got confused because your email, I'm like, wait, it is 2. I added everything to my report, I think, but do you have any questions? I am available.
Great book. Unfortunately, for Ivan, I get to hear like, 30, 40 pages, then I don't get to hear the next 40, 50 pages, and then the kids are over again, and they read some more of it.
Well, we
So-
have copies, if you would like one.
Have to.
All right. Yeah, or I'll give you mine. I'm almost done. And now I'm gonna have to read the one and only Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sounds funny.
yeah. I have it.
The dog.
Haven't gotten there yet.
I've met the gorilla and the elephant.
Well, and we had enough extra picture books for the kindergartners. Because when I ordered, our projection was different than how many kids actually enrolled. That we were able to, we had a CLSD meeting for preschool teachers last night. And so we were able to give a copy to the preschool teachers. To read this week at all of their respective preschool setting. Miss Bowman is actually doing a reading group here at the high school. So that those kids can read it too. So I'm sure it'll be a quick read for all of them.
It's such an amazing program, we all talk at the table about getting parental engagement in their students' lives and so on and so forth, and this is doing it, sending a book home and getting everybody around the community engaged, and it's really amazing. I think we should market you out like we're doing Sandy here with those community outreaches. That's really nice.
Can't take all the credit because the program makes it very easy. Emma's been giving me reminders to get those questions to the newspaper each week.
I've just been doing them.
Yeah, so I shared the list with her and she's cutting and pasting and copying me on it, and that reminds me that I didn't do it, so thanks.
Oh, I wasn't meaning to, I just want to let you know
No.
which questions.
I just really appreciate it more than you know. So.
Is the company providing those questions in the study?
They provide the lists of trivia questions that I share with the kids. They provide lists of engagement questions, discussion questions. They provide activities for the classroom, like lesson plans for those. They even give you a press release letter to use as a draft when you're creating your letter to let the community know what's going on. Announcement posters. They even give you a skit you can do at the morning assembly if you would like to. I
What's the
haven't
name of
gone
the-
there yet, but maybe the next book.
Let us know.
Oh, maybe you all can be the actors. That would be fun. So
What's the name of the program?
read to them.
Or one school, one book. is the
There's
part.
different programs. Read to them is the big company, and One School, One Book is one of the programs. They have one district, one book. They have, I think, 4 or 5 different programs. And I have to also credit Emma Merritt because she's the one that brought this idea to me last year. And we managed to do it at the end of the year, and it was such a huge hit that we ran with it, so.
I just got it from my aunt who works in the Kenai
Oh.
School District, and they do that, and she gets one of the books, and so when she's done, she gives it to us, and then we read it, so,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and interestingly enough, when we were at that CLSD training in Anchorage, we were all sharing ideas as districts for how we meet student needs and engage families. And Kenai had One School, One Book listed.
Yeah.
So
Do you have any sense on what percent of the families are participating?
well, judging by the kids that are answering my trivia questions, I'd say 80-ish, 80%-ish.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, and the kindergarten participation is very easy because it's a short book.
Yeah. And
But,
what, third, fourth graders can read it independently too, right?
Mhm. And our kindergarten students are clearly hearing the full story with older siblings too. And so I try to ask questions that they will know from the picture book only. And every once in a while I misjudge and ask one, and there are like only 2 kids raising their hands. And I think they're the ones that are hearing the full story with an older sibling, so. But it's been a fun experience, and I can't wait for the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right.
All right, thank you. And Mr. T.
Mr. T.
Mr. T, that's what we call him around our house.
Okay.
How is everyone this evening?
Good.
All right, I won't go through the entire report this time, I just want to highlight a couple of things. We proceeded with the CLSD grant, and we're well into the way of reading interventions, using both the supply materials we purchased, and then also Laura Bowman is working with specific groups. We're currently targeting our 7th, 8th, and 9th graders and students who are below the 40th percentile reading. We've talked with the trainer for HG Word, and we think we've got some interim assessments that we can put in there to get additional data on top of what we'll get from maps. So we may be able to make course corrections a little bit quicker than just relying upon maps. We also are in partnership with the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council. Some of you who are longtime Cordovans may be familiar with the book Out of Our Time, which was produced here at CHS in the early 80s. We've secured funding to produce a second volume through our Alaska Native Arts class. I had the pleasure today of walking the hallway and watching some of the students practicing the interview questions. We purchased a couple of DSLRs to take still photos and to take some art pics to go, and then also a couple of high-tech web capture cams that can be used to capture the interviews. Out of Our Time's a book that is in the interviewee's own words, so we want to make sure we captured it exactly. So our production schedule is to have that completed by about the 26th of June, and we're excited to be able to help make some of our help introduce some of our kids to journalism and to to storytelling and to also have something to give back to the community. The other piece that I wanted to highlight is we did have team time, our first for this year. We did kind of a big event in the gym. Teams had the opportunity to construct towers that would protect an egg, and then you stack books on them. The winner was 38 books, algebra books, which are the densest books known to man. Just curious, and it was just a good time to work on climate and culture and for really engage in learning passion and kind of social norms. And then the last thing I will highlight is that our site council will be on the 23rd of October, but with the time to be determined. There was a suggestion that came from the last site council from a parent that perhaps 7 o'clock was too late. So we put out a survey to get some information from the community. We put it at 7 o'clock thinking that it would allow people who worked, to get their kids home and get some dinner and then be able to attend. But from the results that have come in, it looks like we'll probably be doing it at an earlier time. But I want to let the survey out for 1 more week just to ensure we get a broad swath of data. Do you all have any questions for me?
Yeah, oh, well, first, gosh, that's really exciting about what you're doing with the interventions there and that grant and hitting the students that need the work. And then the number of times a week you're doing some of them is just excellent. I was just wondering, the high school, did they take the MAPS test or?
So 9th graders take maps, but
Nice.
10th, 11th, and 12th do not.
Okay, 7th and 8th too?
Seventh.
7, 8, 9, okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
We do have PSAT scores though for the, and PSAT isn't necessarily analytical, but it does give you some predictive pieces.
Right.
It certainly doesn't break it down the way that say MAPS or AK Star does, but it's something to work with.
Sure, and we're getting quite a percentage of the kiddos taking that these days too.
Yeah.
So.
In fact, I think we just ordered 24 today for our I think we're giving them 21st of October for 11th graders.
Excellent.
I want to compliment you on the number of students that are participating on Fridays. I mean, it's a good number, especially the 7th and 8th graders, and compliments to you and your staff, obviously making Fridays very valuable, and so kids see that and are utilizing that time. So I appreciate that very much.
I would also add that I've got to thank the families, right? I mean, because it's families who send their kids to school. And this 7th grade class and 8th grade class families have been very willing to get kids here and bring them in. And in fact, there's been some days that there have been kids here like they're waiting when I get here. So that family participation and that belief in what we're doing is certainly easy to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And food service report is in our packet. Technology.
Good evening. Only thing I can think to add to my report is that both the CLSD and the title grants have reached the point where they are fully approved by the state. Much longer process than normal this year. I think they're being a little more cautious and making sure line by line, everything is completely correct. But it's now done, so. Any other questions?
How many districts got that grant? And that was a state grant?
So it's a federal grant that's
Federal.
passed through the state,
Okay,
I believe 24.
24 districts. Was it open to everybody? I mean, or was it limited funding?
So there were criteria we had to meet. I'm not sure what those criteria were. But it wasn't open to everybody. Alaska received quite a bit of money, as I understand it. They were saying that, one of the meetings, remember, they're saying Alaska got the same amount of money as California. So there was quite a bit more to go around in terms of number of districts.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I'm just appreciative that the work was done and Cordova got one of them. interesting. It's about half the state, okay?
Yeah, it's fun to see the implementation part starting. I always say that getting the grants, the easy part, and then the real work starts.
Although I would guess that getting the grant isn't really that easy either.
Depends on the grants.
I thank you for your hard work in that area though.
Well, that was a team effort, the principals and I.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maintenance is not present today. The report's in our packet. Business office. Alex, were you covering for that?
I would take questions if there were any. Annie's traveling with the volleyball team. Anchorage this weekend.
Yep. Were there any questions for Alex that he can either answer or take back?
She's still coming to the office every day. Just kidding.
All right, then we'll move to the superintendent report.
Well, I'd like to follow suit with the people before me. My report's in the packet. That included a few more things than what I normally do. I thought you might find the 50-year enrollment data interesting, just from a perspective. We often talk about kind of historical data and kind of what numbers were back in the day, and you can see the data as it were, at least since 1976. And yeah, we're just kind of progressing through the normal reports that we do. We're in full swing for the October count, which is the enrollment time period, 20-day count. That the state determines what our funding will be during that time. And I also included, just by way of reference, an assessment, I guess matrix, if you will, of the assessments that we give throughout the year.
Alex, I was looking at that enrollment data and obviously in the 75, 76 to 70s there, the numbers were significantly higher than they are today. And then again, another spike there towards the end of the 90s. Do you know what either caused those spikes or what causes the low points, Pete? Maybe you know too.
I don't know, offhand, I could guess some things. I mean, quite a number of years ago, there was an FAA presence here that certainly had families associated with it. The degree to which kids were in school, I'm not exactly sure, but that's a pretty long period of time, of course, and that's only but 70 years after the incorporation of Cordova as a city. So I don't have a real great idea of how or why.
I know fishing, I was here in the early 80s and fishing was hot.
Right. Well, one of the things that I've always sort of just, anecdotally noted was, the oil spill. And, there was a lot of people that moved out of Cordova at that particular time. And I don't know, I don't know if it's correct or not. Sometimes they mention, I've seen a lot of people that, families who left Cordova, the children coming back, and starting families here in town. And realizing the benefits of living in a small town and walk to the libraries and stuff. And that's what I've made remarks about, the sort of that increase. Cause yeah, it was, right, we've gone from, I think when I got on the board, we were at 450 or so. It is interesting. And well, and then you start looking at the whole state, the state is declining in population for the last 12 years. But conversely, Cordova's been increasing in enrollment, which is kind of a fascinating, interesting aspect of things. So in rural Alaska is increasing population, actually, it's kind of interesting.
Any questions for Rex?
Oh, sorry.
Just, I don't know, a pondering out loud, not a question that needs an answer. But as I'm looking at the enrollment data of like 308 students. I think that's Mount Echols. I can't tell in my black and white printing, but. And then we talk now about our space issues. And I wonder if there's, again, out loud pondering. I just wonder if going into the future, when we are thinking about space, if there's something to be learned from when we had 300 kids in the elementary school. I was not here in 1992. I was just born, but
It's.
Well, the school was remodeled,
Mhm.
right, in like 2012 at the lowest enrollment. So part of it, right, or like, can you extrapolate on your thoughts? Because I always thought that part of it was just the size of the building went down, but what else?
Yeah, that's just what I'm wondering, like, how did we fit? If we're like,
Mhm.
wow, how are we gonna
Yeah.
fit 230 kids in this building? I was wondering, how did we fit 300 kids in the building? But you've just answered the question. It
Okay.
was remodeled, I guess,
It was remodeled and that was at one of the lowest points in,
and remodeled for less classroom space.
because you have to do your remodel has to match the number of students you have, because that's how much money I think.
Yeah, it's interesting along those lines, you know, the legislature one year wanted this Cordova to consolidate into one school. You know, and that's the interesting thing about schools is the population now isn't what the population is gonna be in the future. And as Emma said, when you build a new building, that was one of the things when we renovated the elementary school, we were looking at alternative sites. And then if you had an alternative site, you'd have to build a building, you know, with much smaller hallways for the current population. And so it's always funny, you know, in the year that they came out with this legislation that you have to consolidate schools and close buildings down, you know, is a odd thought because you never know what your population is going to be, you know, 5 years down the road, you know, yeah, it is kind of interesting as we look at the high school project is a similar dilemma, you know, or, you know, at what point, you know, we've got this big bumper crop of students moving up to the high school. I just love this data, but I was sitting there thinking of it, you know, it's when does the high school catch up to the elementary school and stuff? But yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, so during the remodel, and actually just a bit of trivia, I guess, is that Mount Echols is the oldest oldest elementary school operating with its original footprint. So it was built in 1955, so it's the oldest in the state that's still operational. And of course, we had that great renovation, but during the course of the renovation, what was formerly the library upstairs on that second floor was 2 classrooms. And then there were a couple of classrooms, special classrooms, in the basement as well as sort of the gym space, as well. So we lost a couple of, at least 3 functional classrooms, during that renovation to kind of create some space for some different things. So maybe to your point, and then when you're applying for states through the capital improvement project grant that the state has, you have to use 7 years worth of data to extrapolate what you project your attendance to be. And you know, we've got some good data to kind of see historical. And then how you go about projecting 7 years out, I'm not quite exactly sure, other than kind of the rollout and the unknown of rolling in, right? So you roll your 12th graders out and then bump everybody up a grade, and then you kind of make your best guess at what your kindergarten population might be. So you know, that's part of the application process for state funds in terms of that. And as Pete was saying, that based on what those projected numbers are, will determine what funding you may be eligible for, right, based on a formula, which then impacts, you know, how far out you might want to build. Who knows what the cost of goods are going to be, you know, 7 years out or 5 years out, but so that's kind of the process. And taking a look at spacing issues, whether it's renovations or new school constructions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing I think about,
Say something, Hank.
Dave, please, go ahead.
So I went to grade school there, and as far as I can see, the footprint of the classroom areas, none of that changed. The big change was putting the gym in. We never had that gym. We used to have the gym was down where Alex's office is now. So I don't think we've lost. We might be using it differently, and maybe in the way we're using it, it might be we've lost something, but the rooms are still the same as when I went to school there. And where the library was, it wasn't a library when I was at school. It was where the super smart kids went. The rest of us were in the rest of the rooms. So as far as I can tell, it looks exactly the same. Except for from where the principal's office down to where they eat now, and then the gym. That the gym never existed. That was something that they put in. That's my recollection of the building there. I didn't think that they changed any of the actual classrooms. Just the outside got a facelift is how I remember it, but I could be wrong.
That's why like everyone who went to school there was so confused that we were running out of space because they were like, but nothing changed. And yeah, on the outside, nothing changed, but on the inside, they changed a lot of stuff on those. Like my fourth grade classroom doesn't exist anymore because it's the library. And then they added some like different rooms too. There also used to be a bathroom, a second bathroom upstairs that they don't have anymore. And so, yeah, so it's confusing for people who've gone to school there because they're like, what? I have a couple questions on Alex's report.
Let me say one thing about
Yeah.
the school size thing, and I also look at the student numbers that we have, and we have classes that range from kindergarten through fourth, classes that range from 10 to 20 students. So there's capacity for additional students in certain grade levels, many of the grade levels that would increase the student body count and not really burden those classrooms significantly. I mean, class can go from 17 to 19, still be considered a small class, and yet we'd be adding, quite a few students that way. The only challenge right now is that fifth, sixth grade, it's got a lot of students. So.
I guess to follow up on the enrollment data, and we've been talking about space, like in 6 years, we have a pretty good idea of what the high school is gonna look like. It's gonna look like what the elementary school looks like right now. So I feel like we actually have really good forecasting data to help inform some of these decisions on when's the best time, when's not the best time, or when we, that kind of information, like I think I think we actually do have something that we can work with, and it's obviously pointing towards growth coming over here, and we don't know if it's gonna stay in the elementary school or not, but we have a pretty good idea of what it's gonna look like in the high school. So I've also asked that question on what's been different before, why is the enrollment down and whatnot, and somebody also mentioned the FAA to me before as well, so that seems to be a consistent idea that people have. I remember too, a lot of Coast Guard families would either retire here or stay or come back, and I don't think I see that as much anymore. And there was multiple people when I went to high school whose families left, but they actually stayed for the school, for the high school as well. So just like different things with like Coast Guard might also play into that. My question for Mr. Russin was if I was interested that you could not find the postings on the websites for the superintendent search, because I looked at the posting that AASB had and there wasn't any, I didn't know if I was looking at it wrong, but there wasn't like a link to follow. It just kind of looked like a posting with nothing else. So I don't know if, did they get back to you on that? Or-
Can that be part of our discussion in a minute?
Oh, okay.
We're gonna talk about
Okay,
that
okay.
very thing, I think,
Okay,
right?
Great.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
let's just do it at
That's
that
totally
time,
fine.
yeah. no,
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yep.
And then, oh, I was wondering, Mr. Russin, I saw on the, on Annie's report that she was building standard operating procedure documentations and departmental processes. I was just curious, do you have anything like that for your position?
Yeah, I have various documents and various stages of
Okay.
readiness, so
Okay.
to speak. You know, I don't have manuals as such for each of the areas that I tend to work, be responsible for, but yeah, I've got some outlines and some,
Deadlines maybe and.
yeah,
Okay,
calendars and different things like that, state reports and things that I work on.
great,
Yeah,
good.
thanks for that.
Mhm.
Panic button.
There is no panic.
Some of these reports that you have to fill out are pretty intense and labor.
Yeah.
Time.
And you know, I'll just comment on that and maybe tie it into Emma's question, is that, you know, whether you're the Anchorage School District or whether you're Cordova School District, you're doing the same reports. It's just the capacity and the volume of data that's in those reports that varies. So.
Any more questions? Yes?
Yeah, I was wondering, what did we give the Department of Ed as our number of students? What our shot in the dark? Was it 357?
365 is what we projected.
So we hit it on the nose. We aren't gonna get any extra in April.
Well, it depends on what the count ends up being. I mean, we're right at that, but remember that the October count is the average daily membership, right? And so that's enrollment, not attendance. And then if we have students that may have transferred out of the district or some that have transferred in during the count period, sometimes it's a negotiating sort of effort between districts to see who has the best paperwork on that unenrollment form that was signed by the parent on this date, and then, you know, Anchorage has a date for enrollment 5 days before, and the state says, well, you can't have that student in both days. So, so that could vary a little bit, right? And then remember that, when you run that adjusted average daily membership is what it's referred to in statute. When you run that through the base student allocation formula, we've got a bunch of different multipliers, right? Even a slight variance of 4 or 5 students on the low end could, when it's gone through the factor, have a particular effect on the funding.
Yeah, that's why I was curious if the 365 in the report is the same that we submitted back in May.
And here in November, I'll need to be projecting out for next year. Because the governor uses that projection for next year in the budget, in his budget for the fiscal year. So.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to, are there any questions regarding financials? We can pass on to Alex. If not, we will, there are no new informational items. So we'll move to new business. Cordova School District Curriculum Review Checklist Guide. Adds information and discussion.
Yeah, so, and maybe I don't want to speak for Kate, but she had mentioned we reviewed this at our curriculum committee meeting recently, and I think her comment, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, is that this might be a good item just to share in the board packet, both for the public and kind of, you know, with the board as an FYI. And the way that I sort of went over that, it's fairly self-explanatory, as it's laid out. But let's see if I can grab here again. So when we are considering, as a district, we go through this review cycle as identified in policy. And then, teachers, depending on the content area, right? Teachers start, reviewing and using this document to kind of go through current material. And then any additional material that we might be considering for, proposing adoption, to the school board. And you can see kind of in that, first top section of the table, we've identified those as non-negotiables, right? So teachers look at that, they kind of go through this short checklist, and if any of those three are no, then we don't even consider that any further, even if it's the greatest of resource, everything else wise, statutorily, curricular materials and resources have to, at a minimum, meet those three criteria, right? They need to be secular and unbiased. They can't contain identifiable discriminatory points of view. And then they need to align with the state standards. So again, we've identified those as non-negotiables. Any no's, we don't even move forward. And then you can kind of see what the rest of the criterion is. I'm not going to read through that. But this framework is based on best practices around curriculum and curriculum resources and reviews and so forth. So fairly comprehensive, and I think the indicators are pretty good and, align with lots of educational practices and so forth. So I just kind of wanted to, at the suggestion of Kate, include that for information and
Yeah,
discussion.
thank you for that.
Thanks.
Any questions around that?
Mr. Russin, do you you can update this as needed, right? Right, yeah. Cause this is an internal,
Mhm.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and just to maybe add, and then I'll close. If we're looking at math, for example, the math teachers will use this framework. They'll review the material that comes to me. I review it sometimes as an admin team. We'll cross-reference the resources that we have or the resources that might be being suggested. And then occasionally I'll reach out to some of my colleagues as well as say, hey, we're looking for new math resources. Do you have any? Oh, that one was on our list too. And so I engage in conversation with them. And then I know that our staff too, who have colleagues around the state, also reach out. Some of them are part of the math consortium of teachers and the science, and right. So they've got networks of people that they can reach out to for information and feedback on particular resources. And then eventually this comes to the curriculum committee when we're looking at the resources, and we go through and we kind of look at this together. And then eventually, if the committee thinks it's worthy of adoption, then we'll recommend to the board at that time.
I saw that there was a lot of reading type things to check off the checklist, which I thought was really good. And that's why I was wondering if you would be like editing or, adding to it. I don't know why there's more reading than like say math or science or history or whatnot, that was just very subject specific, but I think that looks very comprehensive and good to have. So I don't know why it's there or how that came about for it, but I liked to see that.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the last, what is it, 4 or 5, well, starting with criterion 8, phonemic awareness, right? So technically, all teachers are teachers of reading, right? And so those are the core essential 5 elements of access to literacy and being able to read with fluency and phonemic awareness and phonics and so forth, vocabulary. And so that's a really important, even in a science, based resource, right? Like, are there elements of being able to incorporate teaching these things in the context of your content area? But yeah, but easily adjustable and modifiable. And, if we needed a math specific one that folks didn't feel like this necessarily addressed, we can add, call it math review
Mhm.
checklist and so forth. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I like to just have those like institutional stop gaps for things like that. I don't know if that makes sense to me as a non-academic, I don't have an educational background, but I did like seeing that. And so, yeah, that's my only comment there. Good job.
Any other comments? Nope. I would say, thank you, Alex, for providing this information. Thank you, Kate, for asking for it. And I think back to our work session that we had, we really want to continue to increase our knowledge as our role and as a board, and curriculum is part of our responsibility. And I think this helps us to understand that better. November board meeting dates discussion.
yeah, I wanted to put this one on here because we have, I think it's is it the 13th or the 12th? Is our November scheduled date, and I know at least 3 of the board members will likely be traveling in to Anchorage on that Wednesday. So what I had hoped to propose for your consideration is that we either hold November's meeting on that Tuesday, because we have 3 board members traveling, or to hold it the following Wednesday, or another date which might be agreeable to the board. I know that, obviously people can log in and kind of participate from afar, but, I believe that Hank is going to be out in November.
Hank's going to try to zoom in
Right.
from Puerto Vallarta.
Right, but there may be upwards of 5 board members away. Available, and just me sitting in.
Yeah, I guarantee I'll still be
Personally, and the
away.
directors. Knocking at screens, so I was just putting that out there for consideration.
I think that's a great idea. I'm available on both days, preference on the 11th, but I can make the 19th work.
I was gonna say the following week, that way I'd be more relaxed. Not have as much on my plate as I would on the 11th, but I can do whatever.
For the 11th, I will be out of town, but I can call in. The 19th, I don't have a board meeting for work, but I might because I don't want them to have a board meeting on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And they've changed it before in the past. So I don't know if I'll be able to attend the 19th or not.
I would try both. I would try to be able to be available on both. Can't guarantee anything, because I just don't know if you, depending on how all the wireless, that stuff works there.
Or it could be, I'm hoping for some direction here, and you guys come to consensus on when you wanna meet rather than.
Well, it sounds like 19th could be a problem for you.
It could be,
Or the 18th.
but
Or
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's-
How about, let's start, do we wanna do it before or after the annual meeting? We can share out from the annual meeting.
Yeah,
Sort of, and that's a push for me to alleviate, I'll probably have some responsibility. But I can do whatever. If you wanna, we can pick a date.
So we could do the 18th too, and then Emma, it sounds like everybody's around.
or Monday, the 10th. If we're looking at earlier too, because I just try, my travel day's on the 11th.
I think
We could do the 18th, so Pete doesn't have, he can focus on the
Doesn't
board.
have to worry. You're available.
I'm available on
I
the.
might be available. Dave, are you available on the 18th?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So let's go with the 18th.
Great, is there science talks on Tuesday?
That's not my job.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
There is though.
thanks,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Number 3, item under new business, sample meeting minutes based on legal guidance and best practices. I hope everyone's had a chance to look through those. Meeting minutes are significantly different than what we have now. Do people have anything they'd like to share about that?
I do, because I had some questions about it, and the meeting minutes that like the example that's provided is more action and not so much summary. I know you put it as both action summary, but really these are like action minutes because they don't have they don't have summary in them. I don't know what the rest of the board feels on that. I do prefer summary. That just helps give, like what the discussion was about in some, not verbatim, like we've been doing it, but, in summary. So I prefer the summary, but these minutes are up to the board. So I did look at some of these school districts as well. It's hard to find school buildings. So like, wow, I can't believe you got such this. I just looked at a couple and some of these ones were doing the summary where it was.
So when you talk about summary, are you talking about summary like it currently exists or?
No, summary as an, it's like one sentence of the summation. So like, board member Merritt was concerned about staffing levels, and then it doesn't go into like every single sentence that we said or back and forth. So that's what the summary minutes, that's how the city council has theirs. That might be easier to find the city council meeting minutes, but
Anybody else? Have
Yeah.
feelings on this?
I think that now that we're on YouTube, everything's pretty much immortalized, uh, verbatim. So I don't know. I don't know that we need to do anything different. How long are we required to keep meeting minutes like the way we did them before? That's a question to Alex.
So the paper versions, of the minutes, right? And what we've been, our practice has been is that those approved minutes are the official minutes, that we hang on to forever. Like we've got boxes of board minutes and file cabinets full of board minutes, but we also have, the audio versions going back as far as, cassette tapes. That are again in boxes and in cases and so forth. I know that legal counsel's recommendation, and this isn't just, Alex saying this, but the school board associations, lawyers, as well as, our district lawyers have suggested that action items of the board be recorded and not, discussions or detailed, summaries, even if you will. And then once those minutes become approved, the written minutes are approved, then the audio or video versions go away to public access, but the district still retains the audio portion or the audio recording forever, right, to support the written, minutes, approved minutes.
a question.
So you're saying we'd still have the YouTube stuff. Would the public have access to that? Whenever they would want, like I can sift through city council meeting minutes as long as I want. And I'm not suggesting that we have to do something like that. What I'm saying is, I'm just curious, the YouTube clips of each meeting, would the public have access? I mean, I don't even know how much interest they would have in having access to an old meeting with something we voted on 5 years ago, but maybe they'd want something in the last 12 months. You know what I mean? So would they still have access like for 12 months?
It's a good question, Dave, and I'm not a lawyer, nor do I profess to be one, but talked with lawyers for over 30 years of my education career. But what the lawyer's advice is, legal counsel, is that once the written minutes are approved, then let's just use the YouTube streaming as an example, then that would come down from, our website, right? That would come down from public access. We would still maintain the audio recording if we continue to do audio recording, or we would retain the video recording. That might be a little bit more time and labor intensive in terms of, you know, are we going to keep those on a server somewhere, and do we have to have a backup server? Do we burn them to, or I don't even know if you can burn a DVD anymore, right? But like, we would have to kind of research that if the board felt it necessary to maintain like the video stream recording of it. We would still have the audio recording that people could listen to 10, 20 years down the road if they wanted to, or, you know, that same week if they wanted.
Is it fair for me to say that we need a little more clarification around that?
Well, I don't want to beat this one to death. I could definitely talk to Alex in the office about it. I was just curious because like I can still look up boxing matches on YouTube from the 80s and watch them. I was just curious if that would be the same for the public with our uh YouTube, you know, if they wanted to search up, would they still be able to find that, or when you pull it down, is that it's gone?
So two comments to answer your last question first. So once the streaming were pulled down, then the public wouldn't have access to it on that particular website on YouTube, right? And part of the rationale, the legal guidance or counsel behind that is that the written minutes are the official minutes of the board's actions. And if we continue to keep something up online, and who, you know, again, not a lawyer, I don't, but the legal counsel is that you potentially open yourself up to some risk of somebody going back and viewing the tone of voice that somebody was using as they were voting, and that influenced the rest of the board's decision, and the board wouldn't have come to that, you know, so. And maybe that's, you know, a far stretch as to what people would or wouldn't do. But again, the legal counsel is that once the written minutes are approved, then like that would come down from the website. So it'd theoretically be up there for a month.
Can the public request, because you said the district would still continue to store it? Can the public request from the district a copy of that
Well,
later?
we would need to figure out if we were actually going to maintain the audio recording only, like what we have historically been doing, or whether we would retain both the audio and the streaming version. So if somebody wanted to see it, we would have to think about whether we would hand over a DVD to them, or say, well, here, come sit in the conference room, and you probably can't find a DVD player around town, and we happen to have one, so like, watch it all you want.
Maybe we could have like a retention, maybe we could talk about like record retention and streaming retention at a different board meeting with about the streaming and the audio and whatnot, because I do think that like the minutes are the official record of the school district. And so surely we have like a record retention policy that maybe says you don't have to keep audio recordings of floppy disks, right, of things going back a certain time. I don't know what it is for school districts, but maybe there's something by policy we can address with there. And then I do think we should talk about the streaming and how long they last, but maybe that's a separate board discussion. I don't know.
Pete?
Yeah, there was an executive admin meeting today, ASB held, and the conversation came up. Should the live streaming videos be deleted? And even if you Google it, yes, in Alaska, school boards should remove live streaming video recordings of meetings after the official minutes have been adopted by the board. And it's a legal thing. Also Jurassic Parliament, am I saying it right? Yeah, has guidelines on taking meeting minutes notes. And I sent that to Alex when we were discussing what should be described on. And so it's funny, Christie was in on a conversation at the meeting and it was kind of funny. That a lot of people are saying, well, yeah, we're doing it differently. And it's like, well, there's the lawyers are telling people and no, you don't have to follow the lawyer's advice, but it's generally a good idea to follow what the lawyers are recommending, what they say. But it is interesting conversation, so.
Anything else on this? Alex, what would you like out of this discussion today?
I would like some direction on, the sample that was provided. I mean, I appreciate, Emma's comments on kind of a summary. The volume of discussion that happens on a particular item, for example, and, using your example of, that you felt a certain way. Do I pick out every single concern from that conversation and record it? Or do we let the audio recording serve as, if somebody wants to hear the actual conversation, then it is accessible, it can be accessible for folks.
And the audio recording will be kept.
Right, and I think Emma has a great point about just records retention in general, and somebody along the line thought, every single audio recording needed to be kept, because we're tripping over cassette tapes in the storage room. So we definitely can do a little bit of research on at least the audio recording retentions. But again, like Christy and I work on the minutes together as they're written, and she does a far bulk of the report, and then I kind of go through and make some revisions from time to time as well. So again, there's always a sense of what's the whole discussion is important. So I don't want to say that, what people say isn't important, but like, how do I pick that out of the relevant conversation in the summary? And again, I think that's where some of the legal advice comes from, in terms of just explicitly recording the actions of the board, because that's what the board is potentially accountable for.
And so I will say for myself that I like the new format as presented today. And the only question I have is the same one I asked you in your office, was if a action item vote is not unanimous, should the names be listed on how people voted? I think you were thinking along the same lines.
I was initially, and it is put in board minutes how you vote, who votes what. Even I looked at OSA's minutes and stuff. And sometimes you get pick on a particular individual
Well, yeah.
for the way they vote on items. And I was at first wondering, I don't think we should put the names on there, but it is, yeah.
Something fair that the public should be able to see.
Right. So I think that's the way you did it, right?
No,
I didn't, well, I
Oh.
used the actual minutes from the meeting.
Right.
Kind of.
because the last meeting I voted no on one, so it went 4-1 and no names were.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah,
Is it-
that's what I was.
I should probably have my name as the no.
What did you see on those in that, I think I might have asked the same question
Mhm.
similarly. Did you see in minutes with a vote, who votes
In
what?
Jurassic Parliament?
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look, but I think that that's a reasonable.
I looked and there wasn't, it didn't say
It
yes
just-
or no, but it did on a voice vote. It didn't have a recommendation, but said on a voice vote, maybe not, but then if you were gonna do a roll call, then you would.
Okay,
So I think it's like the board minutes, the meeting minutes though, like really are our minutes, like what we want to preserve as a board. And so I think that, yeah, the voting one is another question that I had as well.
I think that that's a reasonable consideration for sure, right? Because you're making your vote in public anyways, right? Which
right.
people can either hear or not, and again, people could have access to the audio recording or the video streaming recording for up to a month before the next minutes are, or before the written minutes are approved, and so I think it's reasonable to expect that you could list, you know, with the exception of, or a dissenting vote, you just list who voted how.
You ready to move on to the next item?
Does it give Alex direction then?
I think we need a little more information, a little more clarity. Is that what you're hearing? But I said I liked the way it is now, except one little exception.
And I agree with you, Hank. I like this format and being able to hear the audio recording if you want more. I would not want to put the burden of properly representing what we say on Christie or Alex and trying to like interpret it and pick out the good words or the main points. Like that's a lot of responsibility. And it sounds like a lot of pressure. So I'm game with these.
I mean, yeah, it's a big improvement. What we're doing before was like not good, so.
So maybe, so what I'm hearing is that with the exception of maybe adding dissenting votes one way or another. We can work on that, and then, you know, let's try it for several months and see if there's any feedback from people, but again, like relying back on legal counsel's advice. Consideration, I think that, you know, this is a good format to at least move forward on. And
It sounded like they felt that way. Pete, you feeling that way too?
Yeah, and just kind of check on what other districts are doing on that voting thing. Yeah, you should be able to own your own vote, I suppose, but initially I was like, hey. But that's the way it is, yeah.
Next item is superintendent search update discussion. Where are we at, Alex, on that?
second. So. Yeah, in my report, I kind of identified, you know, that there were some postings that, ASB had said they made, and like, it's definitely, the posting is definitely on ASB's website. You click on that, and then it takes you to the myrevelis.com site. And then just as recent as this morning, the posting wasn't on the AERRC, that's the Alaska Educator Recruiting Retention something center.
Yes, I think it is.
So that is the new Alaska Teacher Placement website. So the superintendent's organization is now running that. So I did verify this morning that the posting was on that AERRC website. So you've got to do a little bit of searching for, right? They're listing 800 jobs on that website. So you got to either keyword search or specifically look at categorical groups, right? So you can find it on there. You click on it, and then it takes you to the AASB website, which then you click on apply now, and it takes you to. I wasn't able to verify the other sites that ASB suggested that the postings were on. One was apparently one in which you needed an account or a subscription to access. Which I didn't create one to look. And then the Alaska Council of School Administrators, which is the umbrella organization for the superintendents and the principals and the business managers, right? The posting was not on their particular site.
And should be.
Well, the ASB said that it was on there, but it's not on there. Or they had intended to post it on there, but it's not. So I think I feel a little bit more comfortable it now being on an important recruiting website. I would like to see it linked on those other websites, and so if the board would like me to reach out directly.
Yeah, so I'm asking the board members if we want to give direction to superintendent to pursue this. And share with ASB our concern that it's not as successful as we anticipated it would be.
Yeah,
Yes.
the sooner the better.
One of the interesting aspects is with what's happened to ATP, the Alaska Teachers Placement, and how, it used to be the place where teachers, we used to have teacher fairs in the state of Alaska. That has now gone away, which is kind of interesting, right? And so then it's been moved to this, so the Superintendent's Association has taken this on, and they've got this AERRC, which is, as Alex said, within the Superintendent's Association, which has the ASA and the ACSA sites. And I noticed, I think I sent Alex a couple notes that I saw on some folks are having some difficulties with a AC, that whatever the ACRSC, that particular site. AERRC. But it isn't slowing down the Revella site and how people go to the AASB site if you're looking for a superintendent position, how it's readily available there. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I've been pulled from the superintendent search team at this point. And I've got terrible FOMO. I don't like to miss out on it, but Lon and got together with some of the other staff and felt that just for perception's sake, they don't want me talking to the best superintendent candidates and pulling them our direction. And I said I wouldn't, but so I have been pulled from that just for perception's sake, so that other districts don't think that I'm working against. But we are the first district out there. Ketchikan is the second one. But yeah, so we're right out in front at the moment, and we're getting some additions to the Revella site. There's been a number of applicants already, but I can't peek at it. So yeah, I've been told to stay away, which is kind of nice. I got one thing off my plate anyway. For a
Alex, you
moment.
had a comment?
Yeah, just that I mean, if the board is comfortable with me reaching out directly to ACSA, the umbrella organization, right? They have their own website. Like, we would like to see that listed on their job search, little drop down menu, right? So I'll reach out to them as well as the school business officials, and then the elementary and secondary school principal organization, to see if they can just
Yeah.
put AASB's link, just embed the link right on the job, their job search drop down menu.
My perspective is the more places, the better.
Hmm.
Can we also put that on our school district Facebook page?
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, can I say something?
Yes.
So also something that Kate brought up way earlier, the survey. We would like to have that survey to our community as soon as possible, so that we can use the information when it does come down to the candidates, picking the candidates out. And it, like the emails or what they were telling us before, it didn't sound like they were intending on doing the survey the way that we wanted to. It sounded like they were going to do the survey when their people in town were meeting with the candidates and say, hey, do you like this guy or don't you? And I that's not the kind of survey that we want. So that might be something we have to make sure that they're aware of, and maybe you've already done it. I don't know. I just didn't want to let that one slide.
That's an excellent point, Dave. You're exactly right, because asking the people when they're in town, that's an exit ticket. That's not a survey,
May I add on to that?
please.
This is a question, maybe you can answer it, Pete, because we haven't seen what the survey looks like. So my first point was, I want to make sure it's October. I want to make sure we get, because I think they said that they're going to help us craft the survey, but like, we'd like to get this going sooner rather than later. And then I was wondering if the survey is specifically geared towards families, because I also really want to know what the staff is looking for in their future leader. And so like if it's asking about like your child this, your child that, or is there space for our faculty and staff to be like, to talk about what they would like to see in their superintendent?
So it'd be nice to know when we get the results of the survey on the different groups. Yeah.
I'd also like to make sure it's for the whole community too, not just
Right.
Don's parents.
Yeah, so I would like to see some of those survey questions if possible, just to see if we're getting the whole spectrum of our community.
Right. The other thing that I, and it may be just me, but I felt that I was not getting a clear understanding of exactly what the background check was gonna look like. Whether they were gonna give us the actual transcript of the questions that were being asked and the answers that were given. Or if it was just gonna be a summary of, how these people responded. So I don't know if we can did anybody else feel that? I mean.
Just, I think you said background check, I think you meant reference.
Reference check, thanks for reference checks, yeah, because they said they were gonna call off the list, which I was really happy to see. But I'd like to know what the report they give us is gonna look like. Alex?
Yeah, so I think Pete and I can maybe I'll check with you later on what your availability is tomorrow, or so. So Pete and I have been tag teaming these efforts, and I'm the point of communication going outward. We're both getting stuff coming in, so.
Alex is taking prolific notes.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
not, so I won't send an email.
Conflict of interest, you're up to-
Shoot it off. I'll let Alex send it this time.
And we don't need to, like, you'll provide that to us when you have it, so we can start kind of digesting
Yeah.
and looking at it, and we don't have to wait till like the next meeting or,
No.
okay, good, cause I wanna be like getting my head in
Yeah.
the game on this.
Yeah, so that'll be a
Perfect.
communication from the superintendent
Awesome.
out to the board. There's
Great.
no worry about a board meeting or a perceived board
Thank
meeting.
you.
Is there anything else on the superintendent search that needs to be discussed? At this time,
And just sort of a comment on like if we do this survey, what is it? And the idea is like December 18th or something is we're shutting the Revelis down. Is that, or we're closing the application, right? So we have up until that point to get community input, because we aren't looking at any candidates until that point. Okay.
we need the results before that.
Yeah, if we could have a plan, I know, like a survey ready to go by November 18th, that would give us a month to collect the data and review the data.
I
And
strongly suspect the survey is going to be something and that they use in all.
There's different,
districts.
there's
I mean, they
different
have
ones.
different surveys, but they're not gonna write one for us.
Well, and we just talked about engagement with the public, right? And this is like a pretty easy talking point to bring up to, just on our own to be like, oh, I saw you at a school board meeting, or, what are you looking for in the next superintendent? Or what do you love about our schools? I mean, I think maybe even people don't interact with the superintendent all the time. So like, what does a superintendent do? Even, sometimes you can really get it, like what people's educational value is by just asking about, just schools.
And
So
we should put in the school newsletters, a little thing from us saying, please take the time to fill out the survey when it comes.
or even if you see a school board member, talk to them about it, right? Just kind of an open invitation. Hey, maybe that's a letter for the Cordova Times or something. But,
Mr. Chairman. So is
Yes.
there anything stopping us from if we don't like the survey that they provide, if we don't like the format or what they're asking, is there anything stopping us from developing some simple questions, for our community and sending it out ourselves?
I don't think Alex is saying, no, there's nothing that would stop us from doing that, or maybe adding to a survey that they have, although, I mean, I know that surveys are extremely difficult to write to get the results that you're hoping to get, but Alex
Okay.
is, Alex already has one in his back pocket anyway, so.
Well, I'm just wondering because if it, then we can control the time. And as Kate was saying, it would be nice to have a month at least to let people answer and respond and send it back to us. So that we can, I just don't want this to get away from us because I think it's a
No.
very important part of this process. So that's all I got.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll ask Alex and Pete if they'll ask the questions about the survey, maybe even get a sample of the survey for us to look at shortly so that we can get either approve it and send it out or
When hopefully we'll see those questions
Yes.
before, so we'll already have in our mind, oh yeah, this is what I'm looking for, or like, no, we need to open up our parachute and do our own, and then
Yeah.
maybe at the November meeting, we'll be able to,
yeah,
hopefully, everything we'll be able to add in what we need.
good.
Mhm.
All right, moving on to number 5, AR 5144, discipline first read. Action item. Do we need a motion on this?
Do we move to approve it? I move to approve AR 5144 discipline. First read.
I'll second it.
Thanks.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's have a discussion around AR 5144 discipline.
So over the course of the next probably several months, you'll see just random out of sequence ARs and board policies. So these have been ones that the committee has already looked at, and then I've got a stack of them that need additional work to research that I've been kind of plugging away at. So these were the suggested recommendations from the committee to align it with some of the other policies that we have. So that's what it is.
I appreciate the tardiness one is always, when you start looking at some of the tardy and pretty punitive. I appreciate that look.
And are we just discussing the changes that are being implemented or the policy as a whole?
One thing that's sort of interesting about it, this is an AR, so the superintendent writes the ARs, they're the how, the board, so Alex is, I was gonna say generous in the fact that he's asking the board to approve an AR, because it really isn't necessary. It's the how, the board policy itself is the board, policy, but as I say, it's nice that Alex allows us to vote on these, because some superintendents don't.
So I would like to just say something. I gotta get up in like 5 hours and get on an airplane. So, I know this is the wrong time to bring this up. And we'll have to discuss this when this policy comes up for review at some point in the future, but the first offense for drugs, having the 9-week suspension for extracurricular activities. I would like to chew on that. We don't have to do that today because as I stated, it's definitely not the right time to bring that up. But I just wanna, the next time that policy comes up, I don't wanna forget about talking about that. That just seems very super harsh to me because you basically be stopping that kid from playing sports or whatever extracurricular activity, robotics, whatever it is that they do, you would be effectively stopping them from playing with that time frame. So that caught my eye, and it's not the change that we're going to discuss tonight. So I don't want to get crazy about that. But the only change I saw was that the superintendent isn't sit with us when we do our, like, if there was an expulsion, uh what the heck is the term for that, but where we would be the judge, we would be sitting there in the judge seat, judging them. Is that the only change that we're up for tonight?
So so let me answer Kate's previous question. So
Okay.
you can talk about any of the items that are up for just like the whole AR is up for discussion, not just the recommended suggestions. So Dave, the text that's in blue. So item number 2 under fighting violence and vandalism is a suggested addition to the AR. And then the highlighted language that's stricken under that number 3A expulsion. And the reason for that removal was the superintendent doesn't have a part in deciding on the expulsion, so the student is really sitting before the board. The superintendent can't expel students. It's only through board action that a student can be expelled. The superintendent certainly is part of the process in providing the board with relevant information and a potential recommendation, but it's ultimately the board, so.
Yeah,
just-
Roger, I understood that. I just was, I don't want to drag this out too much, because I don't think it's the appropriate time to try to change an AR. I think the appropriate time is when it comes up in the policy committee level first, in my opinion. So I don't want to do that, but I would just wanted to make sure that the yellow highlighted and then you said the blue highlighted, those are the 2 items that we would be voting to alter or voting in favor of or against.
Right, and this is a first read, so
Yep.
it'll come back at a future meeting in November, and if the board wants me to take a look at any additional language or.
So Kate can make points as it relates to other things besides the highlight item.
And I'd like to echo what Dave said. I was reading through the alcohol and illegal drugs section. And while I support keeping alcohol and illegal drugs out of the school, I do feel as though the consequences were rather punitive. For example, the second offense of assaulting another student is 5 to 10 days of in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension. But the second offense of alcohol or marijuana is removal from regular school and assigned to an alternative school environment. And I'm like, what is that school environment? And I also, and this is a personal thing, like the first offense for alcohol and illegal drugs is out of school suspension. And it's just like my personal belief that we shouldn't be withholding school from children as a punishment, especially for something that's like not like I understand in a assault, like you've hurt another child, we need to remove you from the situation and take a break, but I don't know, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way to use withholding education as a punishment.
So Alex, would it be, a policy can be looked at any time, even if it's on the review time, right?
Mhm.
So would it be more appropriate for us to actually go to the, not the AR, but the policy and have this conversation or discussion around that? Instead of doing it through the AR?
We can certainly do either. I mean, it doesn't hurt to kind of do this, but what this AR does as it's presented aligns with what how the board policy reads, as well as some of the ASA requirements on alcohol and drugs in particular. So we are an ASA sanctioned school district, so we have to abide by the ASA rules and regulations. And so the one way to sort of bring that to the forefront is to align particularly our ARs with what's required as a
And I
participant.
think we looked at those kind of recently, didn't we?
Yeah.
A year ago or something.
And we can double I can show you the side by side of ASA just as a comparative. So that we're all,
Yeah, well, thanks to Dave and Kate for mentioning that the 9 weeks. I feel similarly with you that we shouldn't, kids, even when this happened back in 2009, 2010, I was like, at that point in time, we did have in there 9 weeks, and I said 63 days. And students are, so I mean, it would be interesting to look at that. Because we did change that. We do not have the 9 week extracurricular suspension at this point. ASA's rules are the 5 days, and that was what the students came and self-reported at that time. So it would be interesting to go back and look exactly where the 9 weeks is coming from.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna speak just from my experience as a high school athlete, and sports kept me out of trouble. Like I was headed down the wrong path, in seventh grade, smoking weed. And joining sports is what made me change from that direction, and kept me focused on a team sport. And so I would hate to take, and I think that is a lot of kids will have that experience in high school. And I don't want to take away, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be a punishment. I just don't want to take away, you get 4 years to play sports. That's it. And if you lost a whole year, it may have a negative impact on that student. It would be a consequence that we wouldn't intentionally do, but it may have such a bad impact on that particular student athlete or student robotics guy or whatever he does extracurricular, that it wouldn't work the way we intend it to work. I guess that was my thinking on that.
Thank you.
My question just seems kind of trivial and silly now, but earlier this year, Mr. Tancred had talked about tardiness and we made changes to the handbook. And I don't even remember what it was, but I remember it was like, it was different for every single teacher on how they dealt with like the tardies. And then in the AR policy, now it's 3 tardies in the second tardy, or point 2 is 3 tardies in a class will result in 1 absence. Those are aligned. I'm assuming those are aligned then with what Mr. Tancred has in.
Yes.
Okay, great.
yep,
Thanks.
he and I recently were
Perfect.
working on this one together.
Perfect, thanks.
So clarification for me, this is an action item, but on a first read.
Mhm.
So if we approve it, it just means it comes before us again,
Right.
possibly in the consent agenda. Or will it come to us as a action item again?
It can easily be put as a separate item on the.
And if it comes in consent agenda, we certainly in our discussion can ask to have it moved to an action
Right.
item.
Okay, based on the conversation, and I'll go back with my notes and cross-reference and do some things, and then I'll make some revisions. And we'll probably have another policy committee meeting before the board packet comes out, since we'll be a week later, almost a week later for the November meeting, right? So we'll have time to let the committee.
And if it comes to us as an action item, it may be beneficial for us to see those PASAs, is that what you call them? Regulations, to see where there really is no,
Right.
gray area.
And that was for sports and activities, not for
Correct.
school.
Right.
Well, my last, okay.
I was gonna say, so you can either approve this on first read with the understanding that I've taken in people's perspectives and the areas in which they maybe would like to see a little bit work done.
Sure.
Right? And then that presents at the November meeting as a second read, and we can put that on as a new unfinished business item rather than a consent agenda, just so that we don't have to go through the motion of pulling it if anybody has questions. Or you could vote to turn it down, and then I go back and do the same work as what I would have done, and then it's gotta go through a first read
And a second.
again,
Okay.
and the second read, so. Have it as you will, as you will.
My just last thing was, you know, he was talking about how it's nice that Alex actually shows us these, and I just think that like as a board, we have to support Alex in his duties as the superintendent, and so I think that like knowing what the guy, you know, knowing the policies that you're gonna execute, we have to stand by that and support you, but it's great that we can like see the policy, and I do think there is wisdom in like sometimes bouncing these ideas off of each other, so I'll be voting for this, and I heard everybody's considerations, and I think that that was a great discussion, but for me, it comes down to supporting what Mr. Russin has in the AR policy.
Which supports small, so. Any other comments? Okay, in that case, roll call vote, please.
Kate Trudeau,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Ellen Merritt,
Yes.
Hank Crutoff,
Yes,
Dave Blazen.
Yes,
motion passes. And the next item on is the new policy adoption, chapter 10,000. I need a motion.
Move to approve new policy adoption charter 10,000 charter schools first read.
I'll second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'm gonna make my discussion and then I'm gonna probably leave because I am exhausted here, so. This is just a generic set of policies. Because now we're mandated or required to have them, but they don't apply to Cordova Public Schools at all. They only apply if somebody opens a charter school in this town. So the odds of that are very slim. We have the buildings, we've got the teachers. I see this as it's being forced on us, fine, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's irrelevant to Cordova Public Schools because we are not a charter school. And I'm okay with just agreeing with, as long as we're compliant, which Alex isn't going to give us something that's not compliant. I don't want to disregard Kate's questions about it because she's spot on as usual with what she was asking, but it's the wrong time. I think it's premature to alter this set of policies in any way because it doesn't apply to us at all, in my opinion. And so that's my comment on these. I would vote in favor of these, knowing that they don't apply to us currently.
thanks, Dave. Are you gonna stick with us for the vote, or are you going to step down?
No, I'm going to stick with us for the vote.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
No questions
Sure.
on it, but did I miss a question that you had? Kate?
No, I emailed Alex and Dave asking about the context of
Gotcha.
if like where this was coming
Okay.
from and then where the language was coming from and if we could alter it if it didn't fit our district.
Gotcha.
I then discussed with Alex that the one thing that I thought we should change, that I think that the charter school should have to report to the board monthly instead of yearly, like all the other schools do. And then I ended my email with, but I doubt we'll ever have a charter school. And if we did, we could put it in the contract. So disregard my question.
Cool, that would have been helpful to see that correspondence. I know we've talked about that before, about when a board member emails to maybe disseminate that information to us? Because like those are my questions as well, like, so is this boilerplate policy? Okay, it is. Yeah, okay, that helps. I had a question.
Please.
Could a charter school be started for preschool? It's not meeting the need, like, we don't have this, so.
No, it wouldn't be subject to state funding. Like, so in statute, kindergarten isn't even a required grade in public schools in Alaska. And so a preschool, it would be like a private school because we don't have within our grade system pre-K
Mhm.
and a pre-K funded program, then
So we couldn't fund preschool, but we
Right.
can fund kindergarten.
right.
Yep.
So if somebody in the community wanted to start a charter school, it could, depending on what the charter is, it could be just a kindergarten charter school, or it could be a K-3 charter school or a K-12 charter school.
So if we didn't have kindergarten, somebody couldn't start a charter school for kindergarten.
So kindergarten is not a required grade in public schools, but statute does allow for kindergarten grades to exist within the context of public school, right?
And
So-
then we're funded for it.
And we're funded for that. If schools operate a kindergarten, then they're funded, but they're not required
Gotcha.
to have that.
So if there was a preschool, if the law was written for preschool as it is for kindergarten, we could still choose not to fund a preschool. We could still choose to not have a preschool program. And then somebody could potentially start a charter school for preschool.
So charter schools are hopefully I can
They're
answer.
public schools, yeah.
Charter schools are public schools, and in Alaska, there are no requirements or allowances for pre-K except for certain conditions, right? Like there's recent legislation that said if you happen to have a pre-K program and it meets this criteria, then pre-K kids are valued at 0.5 FTE, for example. So if somebody wanted to start a pre-K charter school, because we don't have that in our school system, it wouldn't be subject to district funding. We couldn't incorporate it as a school.
It wouldn't qualify
Right.
for a
Yeah,
charter.
thank you for the, yeah.
Okay, well, when I was reading like what constitutes, you have to have a reason why you're starting the charter school, and it had to be something that the school district wasn't. That's how it read to me, was like, it's something that the school district didn't already provide.
Right.
And to provide an option there, so that's why I was curious about that. Preschool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pete, anything?
Oh, yeah, nice catch on that. But that particular policy is referring to the bigger financial picture. But yeah, you definitely, although I am seeing some issues, but yeah, you definitely want to have, a charter school like an advisory school board. And have reports from your charter school all the time. Otherwise, you could get into some issues. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, it's interesting in developing these. I know Alex was looking at it with a pretty fine tooth comb and noticed one of the exhibits in there, but yeah, these are brand new, and they actually were developed. Karen DeBoer, can't pronounce her name right, out of Fairbanks, had written a number of these, and we ran it went through legal then, and was developed due to HB 57 as well, so.
And I think you will have read in their reference to contracts that need to be, or a contract that needs to be written. So I think things that may be light in the policies or in the ARs, right, could be captured in a contract, right, where you would articulate that this is the contract, and if you don't agree to the contract, then the board doesn't agree to the charter school, basically, or approve the charter school. And it's, you know, it's quite a series of steps to actually allow for that to happen. And there's lots of negotiations that happen from the outset, or communication, not negotiations, but communication with the administration, right? Sitting down with people who are interested and finding out, you know, what their reason and rationale is, and then that eventually will come to the board through the superintendent.
So I think this policy is one that is probably very generic for the entire state of Alaska, and I'm guessing every lawyer has had a chance to look through it. And for us to make changes would be much more dangerous than for us just to leave it be exactly as it is. And then, like Alex said, if we ever have a conversation about a charter school in Cordova, then the conversation will go around the contract and how that fits.
Mhm.
Are we ready to vote on this item?
Yes.
Okay. It said yes.
Yes.
Pete Hefner,
Yes.
Emma Merritt,
Yes.
Hank Rudoff.
Yes.
Dave Glazen.
Yes. And good night.
Good night.
Good night, Dave.
Have a safe trip home.
Thanks.
No contracts, memorandums of agreement, no personnel changes, no anything miscellaneous pending agenda.
Records retention?
Hmm?
Or is this the time we say that?
Thanks. Say what?
Records retention,
Sure.
possibly, and district goals.
Yep. And superintendents. Continued updates on the superintendent search. Pete?
No,
No.
nothing I can think of.
Eight, nothing.
Mm-mm.
Board comments. Escape.
Thank you, Alex, for following up on the superintendent postings. I appreciate you keeping an eye on
I appreciated, Miss Donahue and, with her CEA report and, telling us some little bit of celebrations. The reading program is excellent and engaging families. I love it. As well as that's really wonderful about the teaching, the team times at both the elementary and high school, and those eggs are expensive.
Yes. Emma?
Are we board commenting?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, fine. Yeah, I'm really excited for the changes or for the streaming to come on, and then also for the changes to the word minutes as well. I just keep coming up as I'm a new board member, but I also think people look at our board meeting minutes as well. It would be really nice to have some of the context in the board packet, like with the charter schools. That would have been really nice to have like a paragraph that's like, the state law says this. As of House Bill, right, there was no changes made to what was recommended, or something of that sort, to really give, not just board members, like new board members, but also to give the public who's going to be looking at it, that context. Especially, yes, they'll be able to view the recording, but they won't be able to see that detail that they used to have in those meeting minutes. So I think having just some additional context, even with that AR policy, this is an administrative policy, which I give you the courtesy of looking at, and and it's really guided by a ASA for the extracurricular type, infractions. I think that would help, and that would answer probably most of my questions anyway, and definitely public ones, just right off the bat, so. And maybe you might have time to do that without having these burdensome minutes that we've moved, hopefully, I don't know, I
Sunday.
can't tell you.
I'll have Sundays to do that.
Sundays.
Thank you, that's a great comment.
Anyway, I think that would help me.
All I have to say is thank you for letting me chair it tonight, putting up with me for a couple hours. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mhm.
So moved.
No.
I'll
you
open it.
can't. You have to state the motion.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Yeah, vote on it. No, we never do.
Yes, you have to vote on adjourn.
Roll call.
Pete Trudeau,
Yes, please.
Pete Hefner,
Yes.
Emma Merritt,
Yes,
Hank Grudok,
Sure.
Jake Place. It's
that's gonna be my
We did
first
some
question at
parliamentary
the
procedures,
training.
Oh, that's what I should snap a picture of this parliamentary rules.
Was there different, you'll hear different responses to that. Well, it depends. Sometimes you have to vote. No, well, no.
Where's our parliamentary sheet?
That second, bam, we're out the door.
No.
Maybe I believe
On
it.
the parliamentary procedure, please.
Yeah, I believe it. I'm on the